Liz Truss promises immediate action on energy bills if she's announced as Britain's next Prime Minister today.
Good morning to you. It's 6 o'clock on Monday, the 5th of September already. This is Breakfast on GB News with Isabel and Stephen, and here's what's leading the news for you this morning.
The Conservative leadership election comes to an end at 12:30 today, with Liz Truss tipped to become Britain's next Prime Minister. She's vowed that if chosen, she'll act immediately to tackle soaring energy bills.
10 people are dead, 15 injured after a wave of deadly stabbings in Saskatchewan in Canada. 2 suspects are on the run and are thought to be armed and dangerous.
Criminal barristers in England and Wales begin an indefinite strike today after the government failed to meet their demand for increased legal aid fees. The Justice Secretary, Dominic Raab, has accused barristers of letting victims down.
And the Sussexes will attend the opening of a summit celebrating young leaders in Manchester today. They're reportedly staying on the Windsor estate while in the UK, but it's thought Harry and Meghan will not meet up with William and Catherine.
Let us know your thoughts on that or any of the stories we're discussing on the programme this morning. You know the usual way to do it. Email us, gbnews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us @GBnews.
And don't forget, subscribe to the GB News channel on YouTube, and that way, it doesn't cost you anything, you get all the very latest on the big stories that we're talking about this morning.
So our top story this morning, the Conservative leadership race comes to an end today with the new Prime Minister being announced at 12:30 this afternoon.
Well, Liz Truss is widely expected to beat Rishi Sunak, and she said she'll move immediately to announce a support package to help people struggling with their energy bills.
Well, for the latest, we can go to our political correspondent, Tom Harwood, who's outside Downing Street for us now. Good morning to you, Tom. Of course, it's not over until it's over. We've seen pollsters in the past get things wrong. What's your money on this morning?
Yes, I think there'd be a lot of egg on a lot of faces were Liz Truss not to take the crown at 12:30 this afternoon. It does seem overwhelmingly likely that Liz Truss will win this Conservative leadership contest and win it by a significant margin. Sometimes polls have been out in the last few years, but never by 25, 30 points. And that's what all of the polls have been showing us in this leadership election. The margin for error would have to be gargantuan for these polls to be wrong. It looks like it's a very safe bet that Liz Truss will win this afternoon. And then, of course, this street will become a flurry of activity. Tomorrow morning, Boris Johnson expected to give his farewell address from this very street at around 8:30 in the morning. And then he flies off to Balmoral, of course, to kiss hands with the Queen and make that formal exchange of power. Liz Truss, of course, flying up there tomorrow as well, albeit on a separate plane. And then hurtling back down to Downing Street tomorrow afternoon. Liz Truss will give her opening words as Prime Minister, if she is, after all, elected today. She will give her opening words from this street at around 4:30 p.m. on Tuesday. And after that, it is cabinet appointments. We'll be standing here as senior politicians walk down this street and we play this guessing game in terms of who is going to be appointed to which role. There are some fairly safe bets, though, when it comes to the great offices of state, the Chancellor, the Foreign Secretary and the Home Secretary. It's expected that those jobs will go to Kwasi Kwarteng. Firstly, he's currently the Business Secretary. He's expected to become the Chancellor, has been a very close ally of Liz Truss since they both entered Parliament together in 2010. James Cleverly, expected to become Foreign Secretary. He's currently Education Secretary, but served as a Foreign Office Minister under Liz Truss, also an early backer of Liz Truss and a close ally. And then when it comes to Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, currently the Attorney General, expected to take that post, replacing Priti Patel. Many things could change, however. We know that reshuffles aren't always a simple business, and if one person says no, then the whole tower of cards can come tumbling down, and it could be a long few days on Downing Street while Liz Truss assembles her cabinet.
You'll see. Tom, thanks very much indeed. Well, we all talk about the polls and the fact that Liz Truss is expected to win, but what do these polls all actually say? Let's talk to Chris Curtis, head of political polling at Opinium. Good to see you this morning. Every time we talk to a Rishi supporter, they say, well, actually, if you look at this poll and you look at that poll, it's very, very close. So what are we actually meant to believe ahead of 12:30?
Yeah, well, it's worth noting that I'm in my nervous final few hours before we do get this result. And but Tom's broadly right. We will end up with egg on our face if Rishi Sunak does end up becoming Prime Minister tomorrow, because all of the polls from all of the different pollsters that have tried to poll Conservative Party members have shown exactly the same thing, which is a fairly comfortable lead for Rishi Sunak. Our final poll showed 61%, Liz Truss 39%, Rishi Sunak. These things can be inaccurate. There's lots of places you can get them wrong for polling Conservative Party members, but that kind of margin means that we're all fairly confident that it is going to be Liz Truss going to the Queen's
Who are you
Parliament.
actually polling? Because part of the problem with this is we don't necessarily know who's a member of the Conservative Party. We don't actually know how many members they are. And I guess you don't also know quite how to balance the polls, which you would do in a general polling of the public.
Yeah, so this is the big problem. This is why it is a lot harder to poll Conservative Party members. If you take the public as a whole, there's a census that happens every 10 years. We know how many old people there are, we know how many young people there are, etc. The Conservative Party do not release that information. I'm not even sure they hold that information about their membership. So that does make it a lot harder to get these things right. The other thing to note as well is there's a lot of Conservative Party members who are very old, in their 80s and 90s, and therefore a lot less likely to take part in the online opinion polls that we do. So there is, as I've said, loads of room for inaccuracy in this. I don't want, I'm not never as confident about members polling like this as I am about our polling of voters. But even, despite that fact, this big margin that we've got in pretty much all opinion polls does sort of fairly confidently indicate.
Fairly confidently, I'll take it, and I can understand why you'd be feeling nervous. I spoke to Sam Lister a little bit earlier on. She's reviewing the papers this morning, political editor at The Express, saying that at the hustings in recent days, certainly in the last week or so, it's really seemed as though Rishi Sunak has held that room and held, popularity amongst those groups. So does that feed into this kind of feeling of, uncertainty ahead of that result today?
I always think that you shouldn't read too much into what you see in hustings. I mean, we all remember back to the 2019 general election, or when, Jeremy Corbyn was still getting massive crowds of supporters right across the country out to support him. But that was just, lots of people who were very enthusiastic and, a good organisation system to turn people out to those kind of things. That doesn't necessarily translate out into votes. Elections are normally decided by the people who don't turn up to hustings and are sitting at home watching it on television.
Do we know about the voting here in the sense of when people have voted? Because you didn't have to be online, but a lot of people have voted online, haven't they? That's been an option which has been presented to them this time. Do we know if people have voted early or if as a result of that they've actually left it quite late?
Most of the data we've got shows that the majority will have voted in the first couple of weeks, probably even the first week of getting their ballot paper. So, the vast majority of those who ended up going on to vote.
When momentum was very much against Rishi.
Exactly, yes. And that's not unusual. That's normally the case with these leadership elections. Most people do vote at the start. Most people have already made up their minds by the time they get their ballot paper.
Well, whoever the successful candidate is at lunchtime today, huge agenda for them to face on their inbox and, sliding in the polls with the Labour Party looking strong at the moment. So Keir Starmer very much odds-on favourite to win any future general election. Do you see that changing with any particular candidate winning at lunchtime today?
I think if it is Liz Truss, I think there are opportunities for her to turn these poll ratings around. I mean, the big question ultimately is going to be, what does she do about rising energy bills this winter? There's been loads of talk about loads of other issues during this leadership contest. But if you speak to voters out there in the country, that's their first, second and third biggest priority. We're hearing stories this morning that there's going to be, an intervention which moves us close towards freezing energy bills. I think that's the sort of thing that will be incredibly popular with voters. And could lead to a bounce in the polls.
I was going to say, it's good news for us, actually, isn't it? But I guess this is an opportunity for any new Prime Minister, if they want to be really bold, that's what the country wants. So they may be behind in the polls at the moment, but actually they've got a real opportunity to be bold and win the public over before the next general election.
Yeah, loads of opportunities to do so. But yeah, it's not unusual for the first week of a new Prime Minister's premiership to be so important. But I think the first week of Liz Truss's premiership is going to be so important because, if you go on any local Facebook group, for example, or if you read any local newspaper websites at the moment, there are local businesses, local bakeries, local high street shops, all closing down right across the country right now. because they don't know how they're going to be able to pay their bills in a month's time.
Yeah.
So she's going to have to act quickly and decisively to say what intervention she's going to put in place. So put those businesses' minds at ease, put voters' minds at ease out there in the country who just don't know how they're going to be able to pay their bills this winter.
All of that being said, reading in the papers over the weekend about some letters of no confidence being written already before a new Prime Minister's even been selected. It just goes to show, doesn't it, the divisions within the party and the challenge for whoever it is to try and bring them all back together.
Yeah, and you're right. This is actually probably the bigger challenge still for Liz Truss is uniting the Conservative Party. You know, we say it all the time, divided parties do not win general elections. And this has been an incredibly divisive summer for the Conservative Party. We've still got Boris Johnson's shadow there on the horizon, looking over the new Prime Minister. Still rumours that maybe he's going to go and run and try to be Prime Minister again in the future. Liz Truss is going to have to try and hold the party together if she wants to get through such a difficult time. And I think actually, yeah, these two questions are linked, because if she does end up getting a bounce in the polls, if she does end up getting a honeymoon period, that's going to make life a lot easier on this front, because people sort of criticise you a lot less and shut up in the background a bit if you do look like a winner. So she does need to be quick and decisive, put in place policies that address the biggest concern for voters out there. And then hopefully a lot of those people that have so far been critical will fall in line behind her.
OK, well, we shall see. Chris, thank you very much indeed. Let's hope your fingernails survive the lunchtime. Thank you.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting week in politics, that is for sure. With the time at 6:11, let's bring you up to date on the rest of the day's headlines.
At least 10 people have been killed, 15 injured after mass stabbings in the Canadian central area of Saskatchewan province. The attacks happened in the James Smith Cree Nation and nearby village of Weldon. Police hunting for these two suspects, Damien Sanderson and Miles Sanderson, who are apparently on the run in a black Nissan Rogue. Officers say they're considered armed and dangerous.
Petrol drivers continue to get a raw deal at the pumps despite a record price drop last month. That's according to new analysis. The RAC says average forecourt prices dropped to 169.8 pence per litre at the end of August, the largest monthly fall since records began.
Long may it continue. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex will make their first public appearance in the UK since returning for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. They're heading to Manchester today for the One Young World Summit, an event bringing together young leaders from more than 190 different countries. Meghan's going to be making a speech, actually, isn't she? I wonder how it'll go down. I presume the audience will be quite receptive to it.
Yeah.
You would imagine, but I don't know.
Well, we'll be discussing this morning a little bit later on in the programme. I think about 6:25. Yeah, we're talking to Michelle Eagleton, a showbiz reporter, about all of this. So stay tuned away for that.
Showbiz, the fact it's classed as showbiz now is what astounds me.
Royalty showbiz. Yeah, well, that's what they're kind of trying to turn it into, isn't it?
Yeah, very odd. Very odd.
Let's turn our attention, shall we, to a developing story overnight. This across the pond from Canada. At least 10 people have been killed, 15 injured by a wave of deadly stabbings in Saskatchewan in Canada.
Well, two suspects are currently on the run and are thought to be armed and dangerous, with people being told to shelter in place while the manhunt is underway.
Well, joining us now is Jason Kerr, the editor of the Prince Albert Herald, a newspaper in Saskatchewan. I'm not sure if you're able to give us an update on that manhunt at the moment, but it's certainly a terrible death toll already and many people with serious injuries this morning.
Yes, and the crazy thing is they don't actually know exactly how many victims there are. There were police believe that there are a large number of people, or at least a number of people, who may have transported themselves or been transported to hospital by friends and family members. So they're still they're still encouraging people to contact them if they have been a victim of this. But this has been very surprising for people in Saskatchewan. This is the type of thing we're used to reading about in large newspapers from larger cities like New York and Los Angeles. So to see this happen in the small rural areas of our province is very shocking.
Here. What do we know about the suspects in this case?
The two men are in their early 30s, and they haven't been seen since about 11:45 a.m. Saskatchewan time on Sunday. Now, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police held a press conference Sunday afternoon, and they were asked if these gentlemen have prior criminal histories, if they were known to police. The RCMP aren't saying a whole lot about their background. They're currently working on 13 different crime scenes around the James Smith Cree Nation and the village of Weldon. So they've got their hands full just getting all this evidence ready to go. But the police chief in Regina says they do believe both men are still in the city. They have notified RCMP in other provinces to be on the lookout. But for now, they're still concentrating their efforts on Regina.
And in terms of the victims, is there a sense that some of these, are they all random victims? Were some victims targeted? Have police given any details on that?
You know what? It's a mixture of both. Police say that some some victims they believe were targeted. Others they believe it's random. This is another one of those things. They're processing so many crime scenes at the moment. It's something we probably won't find out until tomorrow or maybe in the next couple of days. The RCMP have said they're going to release a written statement about the investigation at 10:30 a.m. Monday morning Saskatchewan time. That's a few hours away for everyone in the UK. And we expect to see or hear more about that then. But for now, we're still waiting for a lot of that information.
Really frightening time. The advice from authorities there, people being told to stay in safe places as this massive manhunt continues. Just tell us a little bit about, as you briefly mentioned, Saskatchewan itself, a very quiet, sort of low crime area.
Yeah, the stabbings occur. Farmers.
Yeah, we're having a few problems with that line, as you'll be able to tell there. We have to leave that interview with Jason Kerr, editor of the PA Daily Herald, but giving us an update on that ongoing situation in Canada. And, of course, if we hear any more news, we'll let you know.
And, I mean, it's worth pointing out, isn't it? I mean, we hear about these awful crimes that happen in the United States. You don't really hear about stuff coming out of Canada. It's a whole different set there. So this is, one would imagine, just be shocking the whole nation. Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister, has described it as horrific and heartbreaking. Dreadful situation. As Isabel said, we'll keep you up to date. But coming up for you, we're going to be heading to Manchester, where Prince Harry and Meghan are set to attend their first public event in the UK since the Jubilee.
First of all, here's your forecast. Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking unsettled with some heavy rain in places, but it will be feeling warm. Let's take a look at the details. The southwest of England will start the afternoon largely dry with some sunshine. However, a scattering of heavy showers will begin to develop with the possibility of some hail and thunder in places. Southeast England and East Anglia may also see a few showers, but they'll be more hit and miss here with some hazy spells of sunshine for many. Showers may also affect southern parts of Wales, but further north should be largely dry with some good spells of sunshine. The Midlands should also be largely dry with a mix of cloud and sunshine. The odd shower can't be ruled out though, but in the sunshine it will be feeling warm. It'll be pretty similar across northern England with many areas dry, but a few showers will pop up, especially across Cumbria and Northumberland. Temperatures at lunchtime will be around the low 20s. The morning rain across Scotland will still be lying across the northern half of the country this lunchtime, but further south should be turning brighter with a few showers developing. The best of the dry and bright weather through, though, will be across Northern Ireland with very little cloud in the sky here. It'll be feeling rather warm with temperatures in the high teens. So heading towards the evening, we'll see further heavy showers developing, especially in the south. And that's how your weather is shaping up for the rest of your Monday.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales
and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel, Britain's
news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 21 minutes past 6. Still to come on our programme this Monday morning as gas and electricity bills skyrocket. Could the humble fireplace make a bit of a comeback? We'll be speaking to a chimney sweep at 10 to 7.
And with a new Prime Minister being announced today, what's Labour's plan for opposition? We'll ask the Shadow Justice Secretary Steve Reid at 7:45.
And as always, we want to hear from you, so get in touch the usual ways. Email us, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews.
I want to know if you're petty this morning. There's been this thing on Mumsnet about people being petty, and people have all been with glee listing what they do. One person said, if my partner has done something to annoy me, I wait until he's in the shower, then run a cold tap for a short blast.
That's a really good one.
Not enough to scold him, but, just give him a bit of a shock. That's just nasty, isn't it?
Depends what they've done. I couldn't think of anything petty that I'd done. Our producer messaged to say, have you got any examples? But actually, when I was reading through this document, people were talking about when somebody drives right up the back of you and then they slow down. I've definitely been known to do that and really over-exaggeratedly driven slowly to try and prove the point. Excuse me, back off.
Yeah, well, that's not a bad thing. That's a woman who started this, but she said, I will drive as slow as legally possible.
Yeah.
Isn't it a minimum speed limit, madam? As slow as legally possible. You can stop if you want. It's not against the law to stop. But anyway, I don't like pettiness, I've got to be honest.
I don't like pettiness, but I'm sure we're all guilty of it at some time or the other.
Yeah. Probably all done a bit here and there.
I wonder if Meghan Markle is ever petty. She's arriving in the UK today. They've returned to Britain for the first time since the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. And this is to attend the opening of the One Young World Summit in Manchester.
Well, Meghan will give a speech meant to inspire young people with leadership qualities, alongside the former UN Secretary-General and Director of the World Health Organisation.
Well, joining us for more on all of this is Manchester-based showbiz reporter Michelle Eagleton. Good morning to you, Michelle. And we were commenting earlier, it's interesting, we're talking to showbiz journalists about this as opposed to royal journalists, because they do transcend both camps, don't they? How much of a sort of celebrity excitement is this in terms of a story?
Well, I think they have become celebrities, haven't they, really, of their own making now. You've got Meghan, she's doing the podcast Archie Tights, which we know she interviewed Serena Williams last week, and Mariah Carey. And, of course, they've got the bombshell book that Harry is bringing out in late November. So in that category, they are, I suppose, showbiz in their own control and their own right. So there's going to be a buzz today around Manchester. Of course there is. I'm sure lots of people will be heading out to see them. They're going to be at the Bridgewater Hall from about 6 o'clock, so late afternoon. It's the opening ceremony, as Stephen said there, of the One Young World Global Summit. Meghan is doing the keynote address there in the summit. It's the first time she's done an address in the UK since 2020, so all eyes are going to be on what she's saying. But on this whistle-stop tour, of course, are they going to be seeing their family? That is the question, Isabel and Stephen.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that they're staying back at Frogmore, aren't they, for most of the time they're in the UK. And William and Kate are only half a mile down the road. They're not expected to meet, are they?
No, they're not. I mean, you know, they landed in the UK on Saturday, so they've had a day to go and see them. There's been no news that they've seen William and Kate. And as you've said, they're not expected to see Charles. Charles has got work commitments. The Queen, of course, is in Balmoral. And I think the thing is that, you know, William and Harry, there's a lot of trust lost between them. And I do think that they are probably not going to have that meeting again until after that book is released that we know is coming in November from Harry, because obviously we're hearing that it's going to be not so good for the royals, should I say. And of course, we've got their documentary, which is coming out on Netflix in December. So I just think a wide berth, despite the fact they are half a mile down the road. You would think they would give him a bit of a visit. Security is going to be tight today. There's going to be a ring of steel around the area that the Sussexes are going to be around. They've paid for that themselves, apparently, and the organisers, because, of course, they can't have access to Greater Manchester Police Force. We know that. But Mancunians, we love to give people a warm welcome. So I know sometimes Harry and Meghan can divide public opinion, but we've got big hearts here in Manchester. So I think they'll be on show today.
Well, there was some booing, wasn't there, when they appeared at St Paul's Cathedral. So I wonder if that will be repeated. Suspect not, but you never know. It's just going back to your comments about them being very close to each other in Windsor. And, you know, obviously, it's shocking if they don't meet up, especially when you think that, you know, the Cambridges have only just moved to Adelaide Cottage, so it'd be a new house to go and visit. The children just about to start new schools this week, an opportunity for Uncle Harry to see his beloved nieces and nephews. And when you think about it in actual family terms, it's all the more sad, really. The paper's reporting this morning that Prince Charles as well, open invitation to them, which they've turned down, allegedly because they're too busy, flying to Dusseldorf tomorrow, then back for the Well Child Awards in London on Thursday. So they do have a busy schedule, but you'd think you'd make time for family, wouldn't you?
Well, I would, and I'm sure you guys would as well. But, you know, there's a lot of friction. There's a lot of history there. So, you know, I just think they're trying to protect their brand themselves, because I think they are a brand now. And, of course, you know, on the other side, you know, William and Kate really, I suppose, don't want to rock the boat at this stage. It's such a shame, because the boys were so close, you know, back in the day. And now there's this real divide, which none of us really wanted to see. I mean, it makes good fodder for the Crown if they ever decide to do a Series 7. I know that they're planning on ending on Series 6, which they're currently going to start filming at the end of this month. In fact, they have announced the Kate and William that they've been cast as well for the Crown. So that's been great showbiz news this weekend. And Unknown is going to be playing Kate Middleton. So a great coup for 19-year-old Meg Bellamy. It's her first ever role. So all eyes are going to be on that. And of course, Netflix, it's got the big tick, hasn't it, for Harry and Meghan, because their documentary is going to be on that channel.
Yeah, have to sort of watch it through our fingers, I think. Michelle, good to talk to you. Good to talk to a good Manchester lass. I'm loving all the bees and the honeycomb and everything behind you, keeping the theme going.
Well, you're always welcome in my bar, Stephen, if you are ever in Manchester. I know, Isabel, you came down with Eamonn, didn't you, earlier this year? So do pop in. I should be raising a glass to Harry and Meghan a little bit later, and hoping all goes well for them. No booze.
No, we shall see. Michelle, good to see you. Thank you.
Right, after the break, we're going to go through your newspapers this Monday morning. Today, we're joined by Sam Lister and Chris Akabusi. Don't go anywhere.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV.
On radio
And online.
we're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's
News channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
"6:31 morning to you. Let's bring you up to date with some of the headlines this morning.
Tory leadership hopeful Liz Truss is considering freezing energy bills for millions of UK households if she wins the Conservative Party leadership race. The Daily Telegraph reports she may introduce the freeze within weeks of her taking office.
A High Court challenge against the government's plan to deport some asylum seekers to Rwanda will start today. In April, the Home Secretary signed a migrant agreement with Rwanda, but the first deportation flight was grounded in June amid a series of legal challenges. A Home Office spokesperson has defended the actions, saying Rwanda is a fundamentally safe and secure country with a track record of supporting asylum seekers.
A man has been arrested after climbing London's Shard. Emergency services were called to the tallest skyscraper in Britain yesterday after a report of a free climber making his way up the building. A 21-year-old man was arrested on suspicion of trespass. 2 other men were both arrested on suspicion of causing public nuisance.
Yes, that young man is in all the papers this morning because he's got pictures
selfie.
at the top. I mean, it's like, well, do you know what? I think they're crackers.
Yeah.
I think they're crackers. It's the arrogance of youth.
It is.
All up there with no wires, no ropes, no nothing.
No, have you ever met any of these free climbers?
No.
They really are like cats, and they sort of just, seem to...
Yeah, cats have 9 lives.
That's true, but they don't seem to have the normal laws of gravity applying to them. They're incredible, but I wouldn't advocate it, obviously.
No.
Very, very dangerous indeed.
Anyway, let's go through the papers this morning. Oh, it's a joy, because I don't often see him these days. Olympian Chris Akabusi is here.
Great to see Steve. Great to see you, my friend.
Political editor of the Daily Express, Sam Lister. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Sam, let's kick off with the Telegraph, should we? And looking at Truss potentially freezing energy bills if she gets the keys to number 10?
Well, I mean, there's so much speculation still, isn't there? But she's promised to announce the plans within a week of taking office. Obviously, if she wins today, we're all going to look a bit silly if she doesn't. But, at 12:30 today, we will find out who becomes the next Prime Minister. She gave a big interview yesterday where she said that within a week she will set out the details. The Telegraph's been speaking to people in the energy sector, and they've suggested that actually there's been a lot of discussions with government about how you could do it, and freezing the price cap is one of the options that's being discussed. And Liz Truss was asked about this yesterday. She didn't deny it, which has fuelled the speculation that it could be among the options she's looking at.
OK, so the price cap that was announced at the end of August but would come into force from October. They're talking about freezing that so that those bills would never actually go up in the way that it's been reported.
Yeah, it's not clear at what level that would be set at, whether it would be the existing one, the next one, the one after that, I don't know. But
it can't be anymore. I mean, just the whole country's going to come to a standstill, isn't it? If the bills are able to go up the way it's projected at the moment.
Yeah, and I think particularly for small businesses, that's really crucial. There's going to have to be some action there because obviously...
they don't have a price cap,
exactly,
do they?
and it's incredibly painful for households, but for businesses, I mean, their bills are rocketing. And, you know, there's certain pub landlords out today saying the price of a pint could be £20. You know, this is all caused by energy bills, so there's going to have to be some big action taken for small businesses and households. And I think she's made it clear that she will be looking at some significant intervention.
And amid all of this, Chris, I mean, The Guardian's looking at the tax cuts pledge, which was made right at the beginning of all of this, which in some respects now seems the sort of weakest of the options, because it's going to benefit everyone and not those people who particularly need the help.
Well, in fact, the slant that The Guardian go down is that tax cuts benefit the rich and not the very poorest. That they don't say what they allocate as rich, but you're 250 times better off if you're rich with a tax cut than a poor person, so that your £1,800 is what you'd get if you got wealthy, whereas £7 is what you'd get. Now, of course, there is an earning capacity, but this is the challenge we see with the unrest as well. Now, we are presupposing that Miss Truss is going to be the Prime Minister going forward. But what we've had over the last couple of months is a great insight to the idea that you can mess around with the Titanic while it's actually sinking. And she's been speaking to a very small cohort of people. But on the outside, there's been massive agitation, as we've seen with the Mick Lynch and all that sort of people about, listen, these people are really, really hurting. So The Guardian's take is, OK, she understands that people are struggling, that business is also concerned about their energy bills, and she's going to do something about it. Meanwhile, there's a whole swathe of people who were the Red Wall, who actually voted for the past government, who are not being heard and are now being agitated by the unions. By the unions who are saying, not about tax cuts, about rises. Our wages, we need more to deal with the scenario we've got here in the here and now. So it's going to be interesting if Miss Truss gets in, what her 90-day plan is. We know when in business, when you start a business or you come into business, you take over as chief executive, you have a 90-day plan. I'm not even sure she's got the 90 days. You know, that people are going to be agitated right from the get-go. Sam was saying the businesses are concerned. I've already heard that businesses are going to be seen in this next week. Are we going to be closing our businesses? You know, coffee shops, hair salons, the UK is built on small businesses, and many of them are holding on to find out.
Well, it's interesting, though, isn't it? I mean, it's Monday morning. We could well be having a budget on Thursday.
Yeah, precisely.
Which it is, and that's going to have to be bold.
It's going to be bold. It's going to have to be strong. It's going to have to be innovative and creative. I don't know where we're going to get money from. If we're going to be a low-tax economy, where do we get the money from? How does the...
Well, borrowing, I suppose, and then you just pass the debt on.
And when we talk about borrowing, another thing is that, very basic in the MBA, if £1 million is 11 days, £1 billion is 31 years. If £1 million is 11 days, £1 billion is 31 years. So when we talk about borrowing £50 billion, that's much more money than we actually can think of and imagine. And so, are we going to really keep on borrowing? We've been borrowing since 2008.
But the idea is, I guess, and I mean, you'll have a view on this, Sam, as well, is the idea is, it gets the economy going. If it gets the economy going, well, then it's worth borrowing the money. We've got more money to start paying it back.
Yeah, I spoke to Patrick Munford last week, who's the economist that Liz Truss often cites, and he said, actually, if you treat this as a war debt, wartime-style debt, eventually the debt takes care of itself. but you've actually grown the economy in the meantime. And so that's the way he's been looking at it. He's obviously been quite close to the camp in the recent weeks. And it's only quite recently that we paid off the debt from World War I, but obviously inflation, etc., always kind of overtakes the debt. So it's not quite as bad as you think it is. But their focus has been, you've got to grow the economy, and if you have to borrow to do that, that's better than kind of
he was
a
admitting
recession.
that the tax cuts that he's been advocating would be inflationary, and then Liz Truss turned around and said she didn't accept his views on that, and he was her sort of financial go-to.
Yeah,
so
that's
I
it.
was left confused by who exactly she's taking advice from, and there's suggestions over the weekend she's going to set up a panel of economists to kind of go round the Treasury and go round the Bank of England, and, you know, which bits is she going to cherry-pick from there?
Well, I think that's it. There's an economist, Gerard Lyons, who is apparently going to be on that panel. Again, I think it is. She's quite frustrated. I think she's worked in the Treasury previously. She gets quite frustrated with that Treasury orthodoxy, as she calls it, and so she's planning to bring in this group of economists to advise her, and it's almost like bypassing the Treasury civil servants just to kind of get that fresh thinking in there. How that works...
Not necessarily a bad idea, is it?
I mean,
that fresh thinking. It doesn't mean that the new thinking is necessarily right.
Yeah.
But we've got to start looking at different approaches, haven't we?
And there is that old, you know, economics rather is an art, not a science. You know, if you put a bunch of economists in a room, they're all going to come out with a different answer as to what the right solution is. So I think that's why she wants to take lots of different opinions on.
It sounds to me, Chris, like you're not necessarily totally convinced by all of this. My thought would be Rishi Sunak's plans do seem to be, you know, more traditional in terms of how you deal with the financial problem and inflation and the debt and all the rest of it. But the problem with that is what he hasn't done is address how to help people immediately. He's not been as bold as Liz Truss. And that's the problem, because an awful lot of people watching and listening who don't care what happens in 12 months' time compared to what they do next week.
Yeah. So, interesting that idea that economy, art or science. So what we do know is that over the COVID crisis, Mr Sunak was quite innovative, quite bold, stacked some money, spunged into the economy. Unfortunately, they weren't good stewards. I'm talking about the civil servants, gave money to lots of people, and we've got to try and recuperate some of that. But the art side is the behaviours, how people react to certain stimuli. So in behavioural economics, which is much more the art side, you can see how people hoard money or speed up money. And that's how do we really stimulate the economy? At the moment, what we've had over the last 2 months, while the Conservatives have been navel-gazing, is people sitting there waiting for the wish fairy, thinking that, OK, someone's going to come along and Mr Sunak is going to do a furlough-type scheme in winter, and I'm not going to face this war, this tsunami of energy rises and price rises and economy devastation. They're thinking it's going to go away magically, but it's not. And so we're going to hope now, we talked about this new thinking, a new economists who are going to challenge the thinking of the current Treasury thinking. Well, hopefully there's a good dynamic and a discussion there, because we're going to have to come up with something that really resolves a pain that's not very far away.
Interesting.
Do you think Rishi Sunak's going to quit at lunchtime today if he loses, or will he challenge from the back bench, or will he do a bit of a Boris and sort of be lingering behind Liz Truss in case things flail and swoop in to try
his green
to go
card back?
Very good.
He didn't rule out another run at the leadership. Yesterday, he was asked, "Would you have another tilt at this if you don't win today?" And he didn't rule it out. So, you know, you do have to wonder, is he thinking that Liz Truss might fail and he can kind of swoop in there? I think that's kind of, you know, I think the more likely option is that he probably will, in the end, go off and do something internationally. I think, you know, you might see like a more David Miliband style approach where you go off and do some big job in New York or something.
Well, California seems to love California.
Seems to love California, so why not?
Yeah.
It's the place to be, it seems.
What about the BBC in all of this, in the Mail, Sam? There's some criticism because there was some, you know, anti-Tory jokes made on the political show yesterday. I mean, you know,
it
is what it is, I guess.
It is. I suppose the issue with this is that they had a big launch of a brand new show with their former political editor, Laura Koonsberg. It's the big new Sunday slot. And so they had on Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, obviously talking about the very serious issues the country is facing. They also got on Joe Lycett, a very well-known comedian. You know, he's a professional attention seeker. Obviously, that wasn't going to go well. I mean, you could see by his own Twitter account what he was planning to do on that show. And he was planning to hijack that show, make it all about him. Now, that's pretty unfair on Laura Koonsberg, the new presenter. It was also pretty unfair on the guests, Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss. He was relentlessly mocking Liz Truss. It was one of those decisions where you just think, why did the BBC think this would be a good idea when it's so often facing criticism for being biased?
Yeah, well, she was so determined, wasn't she, in her opening statements, and I didn't watch this at the same time you were on. I watched it later on in the day, so don't worry. Because I know it's a morning political show, but much better news here. But she outlined saying they want to have some fun on the show, and I don't think she knew how badly it was going to work out for her. It was heckling the future Prime Minister whole way through.
Yeah, he was cheering and whooping.
Just got into security.
It would have been better.
Yes.
Well, as those interviews were going on?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it was terrible.
It was just a bit embarrassing, and it was a bit like, this is her show. It's the future Prime Minister. I mean, whether Liz Truss or Rishi, it's one of them is going to be the future Prime Minister.
Have some respect.
Have some respect. This is like not the forum to make it all about you. Obviously, he's got great material for his next show. He's on the front page of the Daily Mail. He's got brilliant publicity for his comedy tour. So he's chalked this up as a success. But I think the BBC might be regretting getting him on.
Yeah, that's very odd, I think. To the Sun, Chris, because this breaks my... honestly, it breaks my heart. Yeah. I think Harry's way out of line, I've got to be honest. I think Meghan... Well, I don't know what to say about Meghan. But the relationship between William and Harry, which now seems almost irretrievably broken.
Yeah, I mean, I think about their mum.
Yeah.
And the pictures... I don't know, 30-odd years ago when she had these two little boys and they were running around, etc. And we're a million miles away from what we might have thought that her children would turn out like. Of course, you've got two different styles. I mean, you've got a future king in William, and he's an establishment man. He's got to be seen to be the establishment man. And then you've got Harry, who's gone away to California with his love. And you look at the papers. I wonder how much of it is paper talk. I know basically what the Sun is saying is Prince William can't trust his brother, doesn't know what he's going to be coming out with when it comes to all of the memoirs, that he's releasing this new book. He's already realising that anything that I say or is said in the firm does get leaked. And it's tough because the trust equation... Intimacy is such an important part of your trust equation, and it appears that Harry has just let one secret too many out. But on the other hand, I wonder whether, out of the glare of publicity, whether the brothers do talk. Whether they...
Maybe.
There's all sorts of ways of communicating these days. I'd like to think that they do talk.
Well, it was Diana's anniversary last week, wasn't it? And you
messaged
and spoke to each other.
Yeah, 100%. So... OK, great headlines for the Sun, but I'm really hoping that underneath it all, these two guys are still thick as thieves.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, how do we know who visited Adelaide Cottage or Frogmore Cottage this weekend? They've been in the UK, according to our report this morning, since Saturday. So things could be going on behind closed doors.
Yeah.
I choose to live in hope. I always hope everyone reconciles and gets on.
But I do too. I mean, these guys wanted... to be out of the limelight in the UK, and much of their talking happens in California. So I wonder why we in the UK pick up that nonsense. Why do we go there?
What do you make of Meghan in all of this? Because I've always been quite... When it all kicked off, I was thinking, well, it's very wrong. They're blaming Meghan for everything because she's the new one.
Yeah.
And that seemed very unfair. But the more she says, the more she does. The article in The Cut, the podcast, and the way that... It does seem to be very... a lot of focus on herself.
But I think in a way that Meghan is either trying to be or is being postulated as the modern-day Princess Diana. Princess Diana in her day upset the apple cart because she didn't do things the way that the firm actually wanted it to be done. I would just say, if you don't want to hear from her, don't interview her, don't give her the column inches. Because I mean, if you get any abuse on Twitter, do you answer?
Yes, we already had emails to GB News saying, why are we talking about Harry and Meghan? Don't give them the oxygen of publicity.
Precisely.
But the trouble is that she keeps on doing interview after interview and podcast.
But you don't have to pick it up.
But I mean, you can't not. I mean, she's talking about the royal family. It's it's newsworthy.
And it sells newspapers.
That's why we do it, because it sells news. So she's in the front of the Sun because it sells newspapers, and that's it. So, OK, we've got to understand that we enjoy this licentiousness and the gossip, and we put it in the newspapers and it sells. That's why she's doing it.
But that's why she does it as well. You know, it keeps her in the public eye. She knows that everybody around the world will be talking about her interviews. And so, you know, we can't ignore it. She knows people will follow it up, and she knows it will be on the front page of all the papers. She
Making
can't
a career out of it.
Exactly, yeah.
OK, Sam Lister, Chris Akabusi, a really interesting look at the papers. We'll do it again, shall we? In about 45 minutes' time. Thank you both.
OK, it is 6:49. Let's bring you up to date with some of the headlines this morning.
At least 10 people have been killed and 15 injured after mass stabbings in Canada's central Saskatchewan province. The attacks happened in the James Smith Cree Nation and nearby village of Weldon. Police are hunting for 2 suspects, Damien Sanderson and Miles Sanderson, who are on the run in a black Nissan Rogue. Officers say they're considered dangerous and are advising people to take shelter.
Petrol drivers continue to get a raw deal at the pumps despite a record price drop last month, according to new analysis. It's from the RAC. It says average forecourt prices dropped to 169.8 pence per litre at the end of August. It is the largest monthly fall since records began.
As we've just been discussing, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex will make their first public appearance in the UK since returning for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. They're heading to Manchester today for the One Young World Summit, an event that brings together young leaders from more than 190 countries. Now, with the cost of energy bills rising, including the increasing price of central heating, some families are believed to be considering turning to the humble fireplace to keep them warm this winter.
Now, according to the Stove Industry Alliance, using fires could save thousands of pounds a year. Well, let's talk to David Sudworth, owner of Mr Soot Chimney Sweep. Good morning to you. I have to say, there's a lot of appeal around a good fire. I love a good fire myself. Are they better value for money? Is buying that wood and getting it burnt, is that going to save us money, do you think, compared to putting the gas on?
I mean, open fires and stoves have been very popular for years now, but with the increasing cost of energy, people are now calling on us in places like Manchester, Liverpool, Stockport, Wigan, and saying, can you open up our old fireplaces? We've been here for 10 years, we've not ever used our open fire. It's period property, but they've said, can you please come sweep, inspect and test the chimney because we want to use it this winter.
OK, so wanting to make that investment, because I presume that in itself quite an expensive outlay, but worthwhile in the long run. What would it cost to open up a disused fireplace and clean it out and make sure it was safe to run this winter?
Well, it can vary, obviously, what part of the country you're in, but essentially you should be looking at between maybe £200 to £300 to have it checked and tested. If, of course, there's repair works that needed, like the chimney needs lining or anything like that, you can be looking well in excess of that, maybe 2, 3 or 4 times as much as that, depending on the area of the country that you're in and the type of property that you have. But the thing that what most people want is they want energy security. They actually want to be able to essentially go off grid and not rely on gas, and they don't want to have to rely on a meter that's whirring around under their stairs maybe, and they've got no idea how much it's costing. And basically, they get a bill at the end of the month, and they think, "Oh no, am I going to pay this?" They actually want to be able to take control of their own finances, and solid fuel allows you to do that.
Yeah, well, it does, no doubt about it, and I guess it also shows a change of mindset. Exactly what I've been saying at home as well. You know, you heat the front room, keep the doors shut, and the rest of the time you're stuck with hot water bottles.
That's what I'm doing now.
Go on.
I mean,
Go on, sorry.
At the end of the day, our trade is essentially a 19th century trade, but we're fit for purpose in the 21st century. And the reason is that people are actually finding that the old ways are the best ways in many cases. Certainly with solid fuel, if you burn responsibly, I'm the co-founder of Burn Right, which is a national consumer campaign, burnright.co.uk. I implore everyone who's got a wood burner and open fire to go on, have a look at that website, because it gives you lots of hints and tips to be able to burn responsibly. There's obviously issues around wood burning appliances if you don't use them properly. But used properly, they can be a great source of energy. And of course, if you source your wood close to home and burn it in a responsible way, it can be a carbon neutral act. I mean, we're so busy, we're actually taking on more staff. I mean, just 2 years ago, I was a one-person band, and now we've got staff. And this week, we're actually recruiting for more staff. We're completely overrun with customers wanting to get us as quickly as possible. So it's a case of we need more staff. Chimney sweeping is actually a great career. I mean, people don't think of it as a career, but it is. You can go from basically just owning a wood burner, or maybe not even have seen a chimney, and you can learn how important it is. There's some great associations out there that will train you, and you can get a good experience with companies like ours or other companies. But at the end of the day, the need is there, and Mr. Such and Street, we're here to serve it.
Yeah, and you say being a chimney sweep is a sort of 19th century job. I mean, in those days, fireplaces were used for so much, weren't they? Children were bathed in front of them, clothes were dried beside them, teapots were, kettles were heated on them. I mean, during your career, toast, marshmallows, whatever it might be. Well, that's more modern. What have you seen people using fires for in the modern era? And give people ideas of what else they can use their fireplace for besides heating.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's such a great resource to have, because you can turn it on when you want it on. You can turn it off when you don't want it off. There's no standing charges or anything like that, and it's just a fantastic thing to have in your home. It looks lovely. A lot of people, 10 years ago, they were putting them in for aesthetic reasons, which is absolutely great. But now they're actually seeing that these are actually much more than just nice to look at. They're actually something which, certainly this winter, is going to be an important part, if not the most important part, of keeping their home warm.
Yeah. Look, Mr. David Sudworth, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed. Don't go anywhere. We've got all the top stories coming up in just a couple of minutes.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking unsettled with some heavy rain in places, but it will be feeling warm. Let's take a look at the details. The southwest of England will start the afternoon largely dry with some sunshine. However, a scattering of heavy showers will begin to develop, with the possibility of some hail and thunder in places. South East England and East Anglia may also see a few showers, but they'll be more hit and miss, here with some hazy spells of sunshine for many. Showers may also affect southern parts of Wales, but further north should be largely dry with some good spells of sunshine. The Midlands should also be largely dry with a mix of cloud and sunshine. The odd shower can't be ruled out though, but in the sunshine it will be feeling warm. It'll be pretty similar across northern England with many areas dry, but a few showers will pop up, especially across Cumbria and Northumberland. Temperatures at lunchtime will be around the low 20s. The morning rain across Scotland will still be lying across the northern half of the country this lunchtime, but further south should be turning brighter with a few showers developing. The best of the dry and bright weather through, though, will be across Northern Ireland with very little cloud in the sky here. It'll be feeling rather warm with temperatures in the high teens. So heading towards the evening, we'll see further heavy showers developing, especially in the south. And that's how weather is shaping up for the rest of your Monday.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Liz Truss promises immediate action on energy bills if she's announced as Britain's next Prime Minister today.
Good morning, it's 7 o'clock. It's Monday, the 5th of September. This is Breakfast on GB News with Isabel and Stephen.
Well, here's what's leading the news for you this morning. And the Conservative leadership election comes to an end today, 12:30. Liz Truss is tipped to be Britain's next Prime Minister. She's vowed that if she's chosen, she will act immediately to tackle soaring energy bills.
10 people are dead and 15 have been injured after a wave of deadly stabbings in Saskatchewan in Canada. 2 suspects are on the run and are considered armed and dangerous.
Criminal barristers in England and Wales will begin an indefinite strike today after the government failed to meet their demand for increased legal aid fees. The Justice Secretary, Dominic Raab, has accused barristers of letting victims down.
And the Sussexes will attend the opening of a summit celebrating young leaders in Manchester today. They're reportedly staying on the Windsor estate while in the country, but it's thought they won't meet with Prince William or his wife Catherine.
Well, we'd love to hear from you on that or anything else you want to talk about this morning. Of course, drop us an email, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or of course you can tweet, if you like, @gbnews.
And don't forget, subscribe to our GB News channel on YouTube and you'll get all the latest on all the big stories we're talking about.
So we've got to kick off, haven't we, with the Conservative leadership race, which thankfully comes to an end today. New PM being announced at 12:30 this afternoon.
That's right. Liz Truss is, of course, widely expected to beat Rishi Sunak, and she said she will move immediately to announce a support package to help people struggling with their energy bills in the next week.
Well, let's head to our political correspondent, Tom Harwood, who's in Downing Street for us this morning. Look, if it's not Liz Truss, there's going to be a lot of shock amongst the politicos, Tom.
Certainly, and a lot of embarrassment amongst the pollsters who've been remarkably consistent in their findings. Leads between 25 and 30 points for Liz Truss above Rishi Sunak. That's the kind of margin that it's very, very tricky to be out by. Most polls operate within a margin of error of around 2 to 3%, and sometimes the upsets that we've seen in the polls over the last decade or so have been within that margin, so not the biggest surprises in the world. It would be the most remarkable error of all of these different individual polling companies to all have made the same mistake for these sort of polls to be out by 25 or 30 points. Frankly, it's overwhelmingly likely that at 12:30 today, Liz Truss becomes the next leader of the Conservative Party, and then tomorrow becomes the Prime Minister, of course, having to fly up to Balmoral to kiss hands with the Queen and then fly back down here tomorrow afternoon, where Liz Truss will make her first speech from the steps of Downing Street as Prime Minister. That's if the leadership election goes as we have expected it to go. It's been a long 8 weeks, as you rightly mention, and of course voting closed finally at 5 p.m. on Friday. Just a few hours now to go to find out who has won, and then following that, a flurry of activity in this street. Prime Minister Boris Johnson tomorrow morning expected to mark his last speech as Prime Minister before heading up to Balmoral. And of course, Liz Truss making her first speech as Prime Minister tomorrow afternoon. Following that, cabinet appointments. And Liz Truss has been scheming in terms of who will be going into her cabinet. She's been having meetings at Chevening, at the Foreign Secretary's official residence, and it does look like one of her closest allies in Parliament, entered Parliament with her in 2010, has been a close ally for the last few years. They even wrote a book together at one point. Kwasi Kwarteng is expected to become Liz Truss's Chancellor, so it might well be that he's moving into number 11 a little bit later this week. When it comes to the other great offices of state, it seems that the Foreign Secretary role is widely tipped to go to James Cleverly. Currently the Education Secretary, he served as a minister in the Foreign Office under Liz Truss, an early backer of Liz Truss, a close ally ideologically as well, seen on the more Thatcherite right of the party. And then when it comes to the Home Secretary role, it looks like Priti Patel will lose out to Suella Braverman, currently the Attorney General, someone who stood to be leader herself at the start of this contest 2 months ago. It seems like a lot longer than that to some people, but she, of course, then declared for Liz Truss. Crucial in terms of getting some of those European Research Group MPs over to the Liz Truss campaign, a committed Brexiteer, of course. So that's a little bit of a flavour of what we might be expecting tomorrow afternoon, those senior government jobs being settled throughout the evening, and then a cabinet meeting following that on Wednesday morning, and of course Liz Truss's first Prime Minister's questions at noon on Wednesday. It's going to be a busy week.
It is indeed. Thank you very much for that, Tom. Let's talk to somebody who knows a little bit about what goes on in Downing Street, somebody who knows the outgoing Prime Minister very well as well, Tim Montgomery. Very warm welcome to you. First time we've had you in the flesh on the show. Lovely to see you.
Can I say, first of all, I agree with Tom, and if Liz Truss isn't Prime Minister or leader of the party, I'll come and eat this plant pot on this programme.
OK, you're very confident.
I'm sure she will be today.
I hope you're right, because they're plastic.
Look, with that in mind, then, Liz Truss, as you suspect, will become the fourth Conservative Prime Minister in 6 years, but arguably inheriting the worst outlook of any of them. A huge challenge ahead for her. Do you think she'll be able to rise to the challenge, and how quickly?
Well, yes, she's going to win the contest, but who would want to win the in-tray that facing the next Prime Minister? And just even if she's has the perfect response to the energy crisis, which is probably the number one issue. I was at a A&E in Salisbury, where I live, just a few weeks ago, and there were 4 ambulances queuing outside then. This is in the middle of the summer, normally when the NHS is under strain. So she could potentially going to go from one crisis to another. She's been in cabinet for 10 years or so she has quite a lot of experience. But even the most experienced and accomplished of ministers, I think, would find the circumstances she's going to inherit difficult.
Yeah, she's going to have to be extremely bold, isn't she? I mean, right from the get-go on all of this, almost whatever the consequences, because people are desperate. If she doesn't, there's, the real potential of trouble on the streets, actually, isn't there?
Absolutely. Well, these bills that people are facing are beyond anything we've ever experienced. I'm on a relatively good income. I'm, a little bit worried about paying all the bills. Someone, more on a lower income, feeding children. This is the sort of thing that absolutely would cause civil unrest. But I would predict, not quite so confidently about the leadership result, but I think within a few days we'll have a very large announcement running into tens of billions of pounds of assistance for families.
Budget on Thursday?
Very possibly. Certainly an announcement by Thursday, perhaps by the new Chancellor, but I suspect she will own it herself. This could be the defining moment of her premiership in the first 2 or 3 days. If the first impression that the electorate gets of her is someone who's taken away the anxiety about their energy bills, that could really cement her relationship with the British people. Doesn't mean that she's, through the next election because of that, but that could be a very good first impression for her.
OK, stand by if you will, Tim. We'd like to bring in GB News viewers at this point often in the show, and we'll come back to you for some thoughts afterwards. Linda joins us from Cheshire this morning. Very good morning to you. I know you're a Conservative Party member. You have voted for Liz. How nervous are you feeling this morning?
Well, not too nervous, but I'll be happy when the announcement is made.
Oh, the line's gone down. We've had a few issues with that line to Linda in Cheshire. There you go, Tim. Never mind. Thank heavens she's still here. We've got to ask with all of this just how problematic is this going to be for Liz? No, I mean, we talk about winning over the British public. What about winning over the rest of the parliamentary party? Because, I mean, she was far from the favourite amongst her fellow MPs.
Yeah, and that is going to be a problem. She's going to probably not just win today, but win overwhelmingly amongst members. And I think the danger for her is if she overinterprets that mandate and thinks that she has the confidence of the parliamentary party. So many of us live on WhatsApp now and WhatsApp groups, and yesterday, when the Sunday papers were full of speculation about the kind of cabinet that she was going to put together. Quite an inexperienced cabinet, and largely her supporters in all of the top jobs. A lot of MPs were sort of saying to me, this is not the kind of unity cabinet, not the cabinet of all the talents that they think is necessary. So I think if the papers are right about the cabinet she's forming, that's quite risky.
OK, well, let's bring Linda back in. I'm assured that connection has been sorted. Listen, you were talking to us, Linda. Hello, good to see you again. You were just telling us about how you're feeling today ahead of the news at lunchtime.
Yes, I will feel happier after 12:30 to know that it's Liz Truss.
And what do you make of the reports of the sort of cabinet we were just discussing with Tim there, some of the names that have been mentioned? Are you sort of happy with those, or are you anxious about the sort of team she's got around her?
No, I think it's great. I've met James Cleverly. He's a lovely man. I don't know Suella Braverman and Kwasi Kwarteng, but I'm sure they're equally capable. I'm sure that Liz will make sure of that. One of the people she's not mentioned is Kemi Badenoch, and I really would like to see her as Deputy Prime Minister.
Oh, well, we shall see. We shall see. What do you think she's going to have to do in terms of announcements this week, Linda?
Well, I think the first thing is it's got to be the energy cost of living crisis. This mad dash to net zero, the Green Levy, for which you can thank Ed Miliband for that. It's got to be abolished. The only thing is, there's been a lot of talk about these energy bills. Nobody's mentioned Ofgem, and I know they're the energy regulator. I wonder what they've been doing in all this, because we've never heard from them. I mean, isn't it their responsibility to see that bills don't get out of control?
Well, I mean, to be fair, they're setting the price cap, aren't they? And I know the head of Ofgem did say just a couple of weeks ago, I mean, he was blaming this absolutely at the hands of Russia.
Well, that could well be the case. That could well be the case. But we should have been prepared for this sort of thing. We're going to have to take a look at fracking, I think. I don't know too much about it, but I think we're going to have to take a closer look at fracking. We've got trillions of shale gas under the ground, and we can't be in this position again. We must never, never be in this position again. We've got to be energy independent.
Yeah, well, funnily enough, you're not the only one who said that to us on this programme, Linda. Lovely to get you on. Sorry to keep it brief this morning, but we have to leave it there. Lovely to see you. I'm sure we'll see you again very soon. And Tim, just a final thought to you. Go on.
Well, I was just going to say, and I know maybe it's just the show of it all. Is this the first time we're going to have if this all goes as we expect, the first time we're going to have all the senior members of cabinet being people of colour, the big three officers of state?
I think it's interesting that is the case, and the Conservative Party to have achieved it before the Labour Party, when the Labour Party is traditionally the party that talks most about these issues, It's something, you know, I am a Conservative voter and I'm proud that the Conservative Party has done that, but also proud that in a way it isn't being made a big fuss of.
Yeah.
It's natural because these are the people that would be there anyway by way of, hopefully, ability, rather than because they're of their skin colour.
Yeah, no, fair point. Tim, thanks very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, the government's flagship scheme to tackle illegal immigration is facing yet another legal challenge today.
Yeah, activist groups claim that the decision to send channel migrants to Rwanda is unlawful. So far, no illegal migrants have actually been sent to the African nation.
Well, joining us now for more is the journalist and author Michaela Wrong, who's written a book on Rwanda and spent a lot of time living in the country as well. Good morning to you, Rwanda.
Good morning.
Michaela. First of all, we've been hearing more, haven't we, about some of the details of that flight, that failed flight to Rwanda, and the experiences some of the illegal immigrants were having on board, the PTSD that they were describing. But I suppose what will be key as well in this court case is some of the paperwork that the government have had to release as part of it. Tell us more about what we can expect.
Yes, just to qualify, I never actually lived in Rwanda, but I've been there many times. What was really interesting over the summer was that as this process of judicial review has been taking place, we saw all these documents that were released by the government showing what advice was given to Priti Patel before she reached this deal with Rwanda to send asylum seekers there. And what was really startling was how negative a lot of the advice was. For example, the former British ambassador, the High Commissioner to Rwanda, was saying there's a danger these refugees will end up fighting in neighbouring Congo as part of Rwanda's military intervention there. There was also advice from the Foreign Office saying that this is a country that's got a track record of political killing, of torture, of arbitrary detention, and a surveillance culture. And also we had warnings from the Home Office itself saying that this upfront 120 million payment that's been made was very vulnerable to fraud. So you have this flood of negative advice saying Rwanda's not a good choice. Don't choose Rwanda, go for another country. And that was ignored by Priti Patel, who continues to insist that Rwanda is safe and this is the best option. It's safe and secure and a great place to send refugees.
Well, they've got a very good reputation, though, of dealing with refugees, haven't they? A big migrant community in Rwanda, and actually, when we talk to people out there, for people who are migrants in Rwanda, they've talked about what a pretty decent life they have.
It's got a good reputation taking certain very carefully defined groups of refugees. For example, a group of people who were taken there from Libya, where they were being held in extremely, really appalling circumstances. The UNHCR expressed its gratitude to Rwanda then. But this would be a completely different thing. This would be a major sort of policy and an open-ended agreement. And there are a lot of people, and I would be one of them, saying Rwanda, of all the places in Africa, this is the worst place to choose. This is not a place that has the necessary guarantees in place, and it's got a really dodgy human rights record of its own.
Yeah, and interesting, anyone who's read your book will come away from it questioning why any British people would trust President Kagame and his regime. Why do you think we have created this relationship with Rwanda?
I think, we've been a big donor to Rwanda for many years, and there is a tendency to become besotted with the country's, economic indicators, which look very good on paper. There's a lot going on under the surface in a place like Rwanda, and a lot of those statistics don't actually bear up that well to scrutiny.
But there must be you said, well, there is a relationship between the UK and Rwanda, and there must be underlying assurances given for this sort of scheme. If there was a failure, then there'd be consequences for Rwanda, wouldn't there?
Well, one of the issues is that civil society in Rwanda is really, really weak. And, for example, there's no such thing as an independent media there. The media is very carefully censored, and a lot of people believe that the judicial process is highly politicised. So if there was to be a problem with refugees, and we've actually seen this in the past with a group of refugees that the police opened fire on them, when they go to court, they would not get a fair hearing. And there would be, local journalists would not be able to sort of dig into any stories that happen there because local journalists, end up in jail all the time or flee the country.
OK. Look, Michaela, it's really good to talk to you. Thank you.
Very much indeed.
Well, let us know what you think. gbviews@gbnews.uk. Got to look into... You might really support the idea of the offshoring as they call it, but maybe Rwanda, as Michaela says, isn't the right place. What do you think? Let us know.
So interesting as well. It's widely expected Priti Patel will be out of her post soon, but it's possible if this judicial review approves the flights to Rwanda, then actually her policy could outlive her, because both Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak have said they're in favour of it. Let us know your thoughts this morning. We're going to take a little look at the latest headlines at 7:18.
And at least 10 people have been killed, 15 injured after stabbings in Canada's central Saskatchewan province. The attacks happened in the James Smith Cree Nation and nearby village of Weldon. Police are looking for 2 suspects, Damien Sanderson and Miles Sanderson, who are apparently in a black Nissan Rogue. Officers say they're considered armed and dangerous.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex will make their first public appearance in the UK since returning for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. They're heading to Manchester today for the One Young World Summit, an event bringing together young leaders from more than 190 countries.
If you drive a petrol car, you're still getting a raw deal at the pumps despite a record price drop last month, according to new analysis. I presume it probably applies to diesel as well. The RAC says average forecourt prices dropped to 169.8 pence a litre at the end of August, which seems like good news. It's the largest monthly fall since records began, but of course, it's still a big sting in the pocket.
Now then, if Liz Truss becomes the Prime Minister later today, she said she'll come up with this plan to tackle energy crisis within the next week or so.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting week. But with bills expected to rise further this winter, many are going to be wondering what they can do to save money by using less power right now.
Well, joining us now to discuss what appliances use the most power is consumer expert Kate Hardcastle. Very good morning to you, Kate. We've already been speaking to a chimney sweep this morning about possibly ditching some of our electronics and using a good old-fashioned fireplace instead. And you've got some other tips as well to help us all feel a little bit braver as we head into the winter months.
Yeah, well, good morning, Isabel, and good morning, Stephen. It's fantastic to see your smiling faces. I'm afraid once again I bring the news of bills on the rise, and it's a reality we're all going to be living with. We've got some really fascinating research from Which here, who've been testing appliances, household appliances, to understand what's the cost increase per appliance for the home. Now, for the average tumble dryer and washing machine, we're looking about £50 addition to run that every year. We've got about £70 to run the average dishwasher per year. So when we talk about the fact that they already, you're looking at about £176 to run your washing machine every year, it's very worthwhile thinking about some alternatives of how we might be able to change the way we do things. Now, it's got to say that the costs vary massively, and it really depends on the model type and usage. So it's well worth looking into the Which report, having a look at your model and see how it might compare to others, because you might have one of the cheaper machines to run, and therefore it might not be as panic stricken as some of the people that might be paying up to additional £200 or £300 just to run one piece of equipment in the house. But as ever, we want to make sure that you've got some ideas of how you can just ditch using them as much, particularly when it comes to the washing machine, tumble dryer and dishwasher. Those are kind of things we have in our control. Fridge, freezer, please do not turn them off. That's not the way to conserve the energy. It's about making sure you don't open and close it as much, making sure the seals are working as effectively as possible, making sure it's not over full, and making sure that you don't put hot items in or warmer items in and expect the fridge to cool them down. Try and make sure they cool at room temperature first. But I think we can make a big difference when it comes to some of the other appliances by using alternate means, and that's relying on things like your microwave, your air fryer and your grill instead of the oven, which can cost hundreds to run each year.
Interesting. Things like washing machines. I mean, you can see how, turning the temperature down on the washing machine is going to save you a fair chunk of money, something I don't do, but I might start doing. I'll tell you that for nothing. But we're not suggesting, are we, that we all need to start hand washing and getting the dolly tubs out of the attic?
Stephen, I would have no problem with my mangle, to be honest, to make sure that I do a good old-fashioned wash. It makes sense sometimes. I think if we think about our habits, it's all too easy for us to just chuck something in the wash and do a very small load or pop something in the dishwasher because we just want to get that job done. So we're just amending our habits to make sure that whilst we are in this crisis, we're doing everything we can. And I think it's about changing those habits. One of the things I purchased, I think it was about £50, or I think there are lots of alternates out there, is a heated air dryer. So it's like an old-fashioned clothes horse, right? But it's got heated elements in it, so it means that the clothes dry faster. And I'm just using that instead of the tumble dryer at the moment. Ditto, when you look at the cost of microwaving a jacket potato, 3p versus put it in the oven, 27p, I think it's a no-brainer to use a microwave instead. So no, I'm not saying we all go back to, washing the clothes in the river, but I do think we have to think about this. If the cost of just running one of those appliances alone is going to be an extra 70 quid a year, that's hard to find. So what else can we do instead? And I think it's like you said, low cooler washers, not using the washing machine and tumble dryer as much, and then seeing what other appliances out there might be really effective to use.
Yeah, it's so true. We've all become so convenience orientated, haven't we? The quickest, the whatever it might be to make our life easier. But I think these coming winters, we're going to have to actually just take sometimes the harder route, but the most cost effective. Really good tips, Kate. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Oh dear.
I know.
See, I've got so used to just chucking stuff in the dryer and all that sort of
You've
thing.
got lots of space in your garden or in your
I
house
know,
to
I'm going to
dry
have to put up a
things.
washing line.
Yeah, I love hanging out the washing.
Do you?
Yeah, it's a very strange habit, but I do. I love doing the laundry. I probably do too many washes though, so I probably need to.
You've got two small children.
I know, but a mum friend of mine at the school gate said she's taken to getting a J-cloth and dabbing the dirt off her son's shorts of an evening rather than washing them. I've got two pairs and I keep recycling them through the washing machine.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, if you remember the old-fashioned washing, my grandma always used to, she'd instead of hanging the washing out, she'd drape it over the bushes.
Really?
Yeah, I used to go home and there'd be just like washing draped all over the garden. It was the thing, I don't know, it was the thing. Do you do that? Let us know, gbviews@gbnews.uk.
We're going to be talking to Paul Coit after the break with all the sports news, including the latest on those controversial VAR decisions at Chelsea and Newcastle. But first of all, here's your Monday forecast. Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking unsettled with some heavy rain in places, but it will be feeling warm. Let's take a look at the details. The southwest of England will start the afternoon largely dry with some sunshine. However, a scattering of heavy showers will begin to develop with the possibility of some hail and thunder in places. South East England and East Anglia may also see a few showers, but they'll be more hit and miss, here with some hazy spells of sunshine for many. Showers may also affect southern parts of Wales, but further north should be largely dry with some good spells of sunshine. The Midlands should also be largely dry with a mix of cloud and sunshine. The odd shower can't be ruled out though, but in the sunshine it will be feeling warm. It'll be pretty similar across northern England with many areas dry, but a few showers will pop up, especially across Cumbria and Northumberland. Temperatures at lunchtime will be around the low 20s. The morning rain across Scotland will still be lying across the northern half of the country this lunchtime, but further south should be turning brighter with a few showers developing. The best of the dry and bright weather through, though, will be across Northern Ireland with very little cloud in the sky here. It'll be feeling rather warm with temperatures in the high teens. So heading towards the evening, we'll see further heavy showers developing, especially in the south. And that's how weather is shaping up for the rest of your Monday.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England,
Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
On radio and online.
we're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's
News Channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back. It's nearly 7:30. Still to come on the programme this Monday morning. We'll be having all the details of the autumn COVID booster rollout at 8:20 as millions of people are being invited to get their 4th jab from today.
It's quite nice not to talk about COVID, though.
I know. Pretend it's not.
I've quite enjoyed not talking about COVID for a while, but anyway. 8:45 as barristers in England and Wales start an indefinite strike over legal aid funding. We'll ask the head of the Criminal Bar Association if they expect their demands to be met.
Expect not. Let's have all your views. Get in touch this morning. Send us your emails, your thoughts, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews. We've got a few. Should we read a couple of them out?
Oh, yeah. Harry and Meghan. Anthea, morning to you, Anthea. Harry and Meghan moved to the US to avoid the British media and live the quiet life. Therefore, why not give them what they want and ignore them whilst they're in the UK? Don't report on them, and let's see how much they enjoy it. Sells papers.
Yeah. Linda said, we like the way you introduced these two as Prince Harry and Meghan. That should be the correct way now. In the past, you were given a dukedom as a reward, but you were expected to look after that dukedom and the people in it, which they don't, and have no interest in Sussex or its people. These titles should be removed and given to someone who will do the work.
Well, actually, do you know what? It said Meghan Markle on the script.
She's not
Prince
Markle
Harry and
anyway,
Meghan Markle, so I just dropped the... She's not Meghan Markle.
She's not, no, I know. But people still call Kate Middleton Kate Middleton. It's
they
just,
do.
You know, it's a bit weird otherwise, sort of just Kate. But she's Kate Windsor, isn't she, now, technically?
Yeah. It'd be easier if she was a princess.
Well,
rather than a... Well, she probably technically is she? Technically, but because she's a duchess, if we called her Princess Catherine, then that would just be like it was.
Well, as Meghan says,
Diana.
you know, people still think she's a real-life princess.
Do they?
Yes, that was in her
last
interview
week.
That's
what you think as well, isn't it?
What?
You're a real-life princess.
Oh, well, that's a different type of princess. Anyhow...
Get in touch. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Let's talk... Don't mind me. Just have a little sting and a cup of tea there.
Cup of tea.
Should we talk to Paul Coit now? He's here to talk about all the big sports stories. Should we kick off with some Premier League
Can I just say
news?
that you are the prince and princess of my heart? That's all I can say.
You're such a liar.
Well, you look like you're posing for photographs there.
I just wanted to look
There's only one princess.
I'm shifting uncomfortably already. Oh, no, you're doing the same.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start? With the football yesterday?
Yeah, Man United.
Man United, I mean, Eamonn, I think, is having a lovely holiday today because Manchester United, it's gone from being really terrible and there was people like me saying that Erik ten Hag was not going to be the answer to Manchester United, whereas now it looks like he is the answer to Manchester United, and I'll go back on everything I said. Arsenal were top, unbeaten, well, they won every game, and Man United are looking very good now. So they won 3-1, so they've now moved up from pretty much... zeros to heroes. Everybody's saying it's a disaster, and Manchester United, it's all finished, and now things are looking much better.
Good.
So,
Pleased to hear Eamonn will be in a good mood.
He will. You know, there's a thing, there's always like a turning point. There's a catalyst in when teams start doing well, and you can often point your finger and work out what it is. Well, I think what it was, because Erik ten Hag came in as the manager, and he's Dutch and he's from Ajax, and came in and everybody was saying he's a very tough guy and how's he going to respond with players and how players are going to respond to him. And often, players, there's a lot of player power. So they would look at a new manager and think, oh, yeah, what have you got? You know, we don't have to do this for you. So after the game where they lost 4-0 to Brentford, what he did, he got everybody in the next day and said, I worked out that Brentford ran this much further than the rest of you, so I'm going to make you all run that. So you'd think players are going to go, well, we don't want to do that. But what he did was he said, but I'm going to run it with you. So he did all these miles, ran alongside the players, and it's like this respect now has come from the players. And
I think a lack of respect was one of the issues.
Yeah. And now they've gone along with him and thought, you know what? He's okay, this guy. Now it all seems to be working out. So whether it's that thing, I do think it's something to do with it.
Let's see if they're on the up. All well and good for them. What I find really disheartening is Leicester, who've gone really from hero to zero.
Yeah, they really have. They've sold players. They're not playing well. Brendan Rodgers is the manager and he's looking very bad. And I've got to tell you, I wouldn't be at all surprised if in a few hours we hear that Brendan Rodgers has got fired from Leicester City. But they're going to be...
Doesn't it get a £20 million payoff
That's
or something?
Right. Yeah. It's like, this is the job. If it doesn't work for you, I'd be quite happy to be fired.
Yeah.
You know, I've been fired from a lot of places and thinking...
well, I'm not surprised.
It's going to come today, and you get the call saying, we'd like a meeting if you could come in and see us. Here we go. Whereas Brendan Rodgers might get that call and think, great, we're off on holiday, 20 million.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's not looking good for Leicester at the moment. I mean, Brighton are playing very well, but 5-2, Leicester right at the bottom.
I really want to talk about the tennis, but we have to do a quick word on the VAR as well, first of all.
Yep. Terrible weekend for VAR. There's West Ham goal against Chelsea. I'm sure you remember that one there, Izzy, that should have stood. This is where it's a so-called foul on the goalkeeper, which it wasn't. Newcastle goal against Crystal Palace, similar. VAR, video assistant referees. You've got someone sitting in Stockley Park and they will watch what's going on and then they will talk to the referee and say, you need to look back at this. It's just doesn't seem to be working.
Is it sucking the joy out of football?
Some say it is. I think there's a place for it because at the end of the day, you're looking at VAR. What you're seeing is evidence. You're seeing the truth.
Yeah.
You're seeing what actually happened. So it can be used.
People don't like the truth.
They can't handle the truth. That's the
I'll tell you
problem.
what they don't like. Aidan was saying at the weekend. It's about you sat there and you can't see what's going on.
See,
the
that's
crowd
another
sat
thing.
there for 7 or 8 minutes wondering what's happening.
You have a big thing on the screen. It says VAR check. For example, a goal scored, everybody celebrates, and then you have to wait.
Yeah.
And is it going to happen? Isn't it? There's got to be easier ways of doing it.
If you're watching it on the telly, you see the
Of course you do. So why you can't see it at ground? It doesn't make sense because they'll show something afterwards.
They need some cheerleaders or something to keep the crowd
That's
happy.
what they need. And something. But VAR, it's not about the technology. The technology, I think, is good. It's just the way it's being used.
OK.
It's just...
Talking about cheerleaders, it takes us over to the States, the US Open. Nick Kyrgios had a cracker.
Cheerleaders.
Did he like that? Did you see what I did there? Could he do it finally? Get a Grand Slam? It's looking
Kyrgios?
strong. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think Kyrgios, he was great at Wimbledon and terrific again. He beat Daniel Medvedev, who was the current holder, and I don't see why not. And I think this is the one people have been talking about Kyrgios for a long time. We did at Wimbledon as well, and I think this is going to be a great chance for him. So I don't see why not. I think it'd be a great outside bet if he can keep it together, not shout at too many people, and actually get swayed by what's going on around him. I think he's got a great chance of winning the US Open.
Well, Cameron Norrie playing later on, so hopefully not too good for him.
We'll
see if they end up facing each other.
Not too good for him.
Not too good for him.
As in Nick Kyrgios, I hope Nick Kyrgios isn't too good for our
we got Norrie plays Rublev.
Yeah.
So hopefully Cameron Norrie will come. He's the only one that we've got left.
Yeah.
Hasn't dropped a set, so he could go far.
I thought you were being anti...
I did as
Just
well.
for a minute.
I was really worried for a second.
Although Cameron Norrie, I mean, a tenuous link.
Well.
But let's not go into that. We'll take what we can.
Oh, what, the fact that you didn't think he might not be British?
I wasn't quite sure.
Look, if he wants to be British, I'm more than
Yeah,
happy
we're all
with that.
for it. I'm with you.
Absolutely.
Paul, lovely to see you.
You
Thanks
too.
very much indeed.
I won't see you till Friday now.
You're not?
No, I'm not back until Friday.
Was it me? Is it somebody else?
Yeah.
Is it
All right, I'll see you tomorrow.
But I look forward to seeing you on Friday.
Well, I will too.
There you go.
Right, stay with us. After the break, we'll go through the papers again for you with Chris Akabusi and Sam Lister. See you in a sec.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV.
On radio and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's
News channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
OK, let's go through the papers. Olympian, everyone's favourite Olympian, Chris Akabusi is here, and political editor of the Daily Express, Sam Lister, everyone's favourite political editor, Sam. Thank you very much.
There you go.
We've said this for years, because I've worked with you for years, Chris, at various places. Mm-hmm. The nice thing when Akabusi comes in is it makes you smile.
Oh, I'm loving you, Steve. I'm loving you, mate.
It's true. You've got a... And actually, we had your daughter in, didn't we? Me and Anne a while ago.
Exactly, yeah.
And she's just like you.
Yeah, Shakira. Unfortunately, the apple didn't far fall from the tree. Although she's got a mother's looks, thankfully.
Oh, well, yeah.
You're so sweet.
Oh, that's a relief.
Thankfully.
We need something to smile about, Chris, because if you look at the start and the cost of living crisis, there's not much to smile about in real life, is there? You can't even go down the pub to drown your sorrow.
Well, I mean, yeah, so you've got the top story there. I mean, a £20 pint, could you imagine? Yeah. A £20 pint. Obviously, the article there in the Star is dealing with the idea that if the energy prices are going to go up 300, 400, 500%, beer's going to have to go up commensurately. Yeah. So from £4 or £5 to £20. But actually, there might be something if the pubs are going to be places are going to be warm in the winter, maybe actually there will be a return to going to the pub from 7 till 11.
Yeah.
Not at £20 a pint.
Well, no, but we just take a straw.
We just use their Wi-Fi. We won't buy a drink.
But no, seriously, community hubs and all that.
No, absolutely right. Yeah. Because also, I mean, they don't have to raise their beers to £20 a pint. So if you're catering for 100, 200 people in your establishment as opposed to 10, then you're going to make your money anyway. And like I said, the community hub might be where all the flavour of the society is being discussed, and the low-level riots that might be happening down the road. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because I've got a funny feeling that if our Prime Minister to come doesn't sort things out, there's going to be some agitation down the road. You don't want people fuelled up and agitation, not a good mixture.
I mean, what was it? It's one of our guests of the weekend quoted. I can't think who it's from, but it's some important group saying we're just 4 missed meals away from a riot.
Oh, yeah. So, very seriously, we've been talking about the riot. Hopefully the ears of those in high places are on the ground, because there are many people who are on 20, 30 grand a year who absolutely cannot afford the bills that come down the tubes. Yeah. And if you can't hear, they say, then you have to feel. And one way of feeling is to wreck the joint. And I'm not predicting and I'm not hoping, but many people who are on reasonable but not phenomenal amount of money are very, very worried about the future, and they've got their fingers crossed and hoping for a fairy.
Yeah.
Sam, let's turn our attention to the front of the Times this morning. They're talking about universities leaving families in the dark about the suicide risk. Now, we're a few weeks away from universities going back. Schools, many schools, I should say, going back this morning, so thinking of all the kids there. But universities, parents often waving goodbye to their kids for the first time.
Yeah, and actually, those kids are technically adults, and that's where this issue comes in, because obviously, as an adult, you have the right to privacy, your medical records are confidential, but that can obviously cause a problem, because actually, a lot of these 18-year-olds, they're still quite green, wet behind the ears. The parents are obviously still view them as children, and they're deeply concerned about them. Obviously, most kids go off to university and have a great time, but some really struggle. And this is about the mental health problems that some students have, and sadly that obviously sometimes leads to suicide. And there was a very high-profile case in Bristol a few years ago, and so as a result, Bristol University came up with this scheme where students could opt in to a scheme where they could choose somebody. It doesn't have to be a member of their family, it could be a friend, but choose somebody that could be nominated. So if they do have mental health problems, the university could contact that person and just alert them, say, look, they're in crisis, they need a bit of support. Now, that scheme has been very successful in Bristol. It's had a really high opt-in rate, and it has helped quite a few students. But I think it's only 28 out of 118 universities are taking up that scheme. And the Times is saying, look, what is the problem? Why not just do it? It helps young people who are going through a difficult time in their
I think
life.
Bristol have had a terrible time. I went to Bristol University. I've been sad to see the problems that they've had with suicides in recent years. And I suppose perhaps the universities that have taken this up have been the ones that have had the problem. And perhaps people are slow to react because they haven't had it yet. And I hope they learn the lessons that university and the like Bristol have experienced. Really, really awful, especially.
It's terrible.
I mean, it just doesn't bear thinking about, does it? But God, it's got to be thought about. That's the issue here. Let's have a look at The Guardian, Chris. They're taking a look at the strengths and weaknesses of Liz Truss.
Yes, indeed. The assumption is that Liz Truss is going to be the next leader of the Conservative Party and therefore the Prime Minister. So they want to have a look at the strengths and weaknesses, because The Guardian, being a left-leaning paper, want to see what the opposition has got, what Keir Starmer and his allies have got to come up against. And they've looked at her and they said, OK, she's a competent comms performer, whatever that necessarily means. She's a competent performer. And she will be the third female Prime Minister for the Conservatives. Labour, as of yet, have not had one. She's raised her profile through the contest, and she's potentially going to have a very diverse cabinet.
Well, the three main offices of state
100%.
look like they could be...
And all very, very competent. I mean, there were some of the challenges against Boris Johnson's government was that there were people in senior positions who might not have been as competent as potentially as they could have been. Whereas Suella Braverman looks a very good choice for Home Secretary. Kwasi Kwarteng looks potentially as the business secretary going into the Chancellor, number 11, and the Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly. So these are things that they see as a positive strength of us. However, they see a potential weakness being that she's very good at doubling down when she gets things wrong. Even if she digs a hole and it's full of water, she doesn't jump out of it. And they say that she tends to gloss over detail. So she might be caught in a detail. And they're looking at, if you look at the change that she's made from CND to sort of heir of Margaret Thatcher, that there are potential loopholes there. Now, Muhammad Ali once said the person who at 50, who thinks the same as they did at 20, has lost 30 years. So I do understand that you can change and grow and develop. But for example, one area where she may be challenged, for example, she seemed to suggest that when she was a young person at school, she was from a very poor background. When it transpires, she had a very good middle-class education, and a lot of her contemporaries saying there's nothing wrong with her school. So if she is economical with the actuality, there might be loopholes there too. So that's what The Guardian are looking at, and that, I guess, is what Keir Starmer and his researchers are all over now, thinking about the next few
But I tell you what's interesting, in terms of playing politics, and you'll have a view on this, Sam. I mean, I know politics has to be played, but isn't this a time perhaps where the Labour Party, it's easy for me to say, but shouldn't be looking at making political capital out of this and actually work towards, I mean, not a national unity government, but at least trying to be a bit more supportive and work more closely with the Tories? I mean, perhaps they will.
Yeah, it'd be a nice world, wouldn't it, if we all tried to get along? But I mean, that is the reality of Westminster, isn't it?
Yeah,
Ultimately, they're going to try and slug it out because they want to be in next time round. There's a very limited amount of time left for the government before it has to call an election. Realistically, we're thinking probably October next year, and so. Labour, it doesn't want to be consensual at this time. It wants to make the most of this and get the best chance it can to win that next election. But I think it does have a problem with Liz Truss. I think she's wildly underestimated. People say she's really ideological. I mean, the evidence is completely the opposite of that. She's made that transition from Remainer to committed Brexiteer. She's gone from the Lib Dems to the Conservatives. She's, she can adapt. She's pragmatic, and that's why she survived through in the cabinet through 3 prime ministers. That is not a woman who is fiercely ideological. That is a woman who is pragmatic and will adapt to the circumstances.
I did find it interesting. I can understand why it makes some people uncomfortable, but I did like the fact it was one of the hustings, wasn't it, where she said, well, hold on a minute, the people we need to win over to win a general election are people whose minds we need to change.
Yeah. So
there's nothing wrong with being someone whose mind has changed.
Yeah, there's no point preaching to the converted, is it? You need to win over those non-believers, So, I think she's very clear-eyed about the fact that you've got to go for the people in the middle on this. So I don't think Labour should be underestimating her at all.
OK, Sam, a final thought for the final day in office of Boris Johnson, outgoing Prime Minister, reports that he is sad and planning is licking his wounds.
Yeah, I mean, it must be really horrible, actually, because it was such a brutal ousting, wasn't it? And you'd have to be, you'd have to be kind of inhuman to not feel hurt by what's happened, and also feel sad that actually, despite having that massive majority, that you've not been able to do all the things you wanted to do. And this piece in the Telegraph talks about how he is expected to go off and make a bit of money. We know, well, we've heard lots about his financial woes. So he's going to go off and make a bit of money. Talks about his memoirs. I was told by one of his aides last week that they believe he's been writing his memoirs all along throughout his political career, so it won't take long to get them out. He apparently is seen when he's out on trips. They all go to sleep, he pretends he's asleep, and then the next minute they wake up and he's tapping away, and they suspect it's his memoirs, so I don't think we'll have long to wait, really, on that. And that will be explosive.
It will, but it'll be a bestseller, one would imagine, but there you go. Chris, Sam, thank you both very much indeed. Good to see you. We'll catch up with you next hour. Well, of course, the Conservative leadership battle is, thankfully, almost at an end, and the frontrunner, Liz Truss, is expected to be announced as leader of the Conservative Party today. She will become Prime Minister tomorrow.
Well, we can speak now to the Shadow Justice Secretary, that is Steve Reid from the Labour Party. Good morning to you. Lots of nerves around Westminster and excitement, I suppose, in some quarters. What's the mood within the Labour Party about your potential opponent this morning?
Well, I've been listening to your show just now, and I think the truth is it doesn't matter whether it's Rishi Sunak or Liz Truss who wins, because there really are 2 peas in a pod, both of them senior members in the government. Liz Truss, actually the longest-serving member of the cabinet, who voted for all the things that she spent the last few weeks trying to distance herself from, including all 15 of Boris Johnson's tax hikes, including covering up for Boris Johnson's law-breaking, including trying to change the rules when Owen Paterson was discovered breaking the lobbying rules. So Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak, they're not the fresh start that this country needs. For that, we need a general election and the election of a Labour government, because either of these will simply be more of the same.
It's not very helpful, though, with the greatest of respect, Mr. Reid. That's not a particularly helpful comment at the moment, is it? Because you're not going to get a general election, not in the immediate term anyway. So what do you do now? What does the Labour Party do to work with the new Prime Minister, rather than just playing party politics, in a way that is going to help the people of this nation, which you say you want to help?
Well, actually, I think it's the Conservatives that have been playing party politics. Sir Keir Starmer, the leader of the Labour Party, several weeks ago now, came up with a fully funded plan to freeze energy prices at their current rate so that we can save households, families from increases in their energy bills that could go up by £5,000 come next April. Now, despite the fact that Sunak and Truss have been engaged in this leadership battle and fighting each other, trying to distance themselves from their own records, actually, neither of them has come up with a plan to deal with the single biggest crisis facing the country, which is in the cost of living crisis. It's the energy bills about to go up. Labour's already put our plans on the table. If you want to see cross-party working, then Truss, Sunak, whoever wins, can do another U-turn and back Labour's plans. It's there, it's on the table, it's fully funded. They've already done other U-turns, if we remember. They said they would never do a windfall tax on the energy companies that are making billions of pounds in surplus profits. Then they U-turned and they backed Labour's plan. They said they would never cut VAT on energy bills when we suggested it. Rishi Sunak ruled it out as Chancellor, then in the leadership contest said he would do it. Well, it's time for another U-turn because neither Sunak or Truss have a plan to help families through this energy crisis. Labour's put it on the table. If you want cross-party working, they can pick up our plan and we'll vote for it with them.
Well, I was going to say, you'll be pleased then to read the reports Liz Truss is considering a freeze on energy bills. And in fairness, to pick up on Stephen's point, there's been this ongoing leadership contest, but behind the scenes, they've both been working on their plans. And as soon as they're in position, presumably we will hear more details about them. I just want to speak to you in your capacity as Shadowed Justice Secretary, though. This barrister strike beginning today, Dominic Raab coming out and saying that victims will suffer as a result of this. Your view?
Well, just on your first point, if they had a plan on energy, you think they might have mentioned it by now, since they're competing to be Prime Minister and one of them will be walking through the door of number 10 tomorrow. But on the barristers' strike, nobody wants to see a strike in the courts. Barristers, in their gowns and their wigs, are not a naturally militant group. They've never gone out on strike before. In fact, what's going on is we have a broken criminal justice system, and Liz Truss was a former Justice Secretary. When she was in that role, she reduced the number of judges and sold off some of the courts, fueling what became the biggest backlog in our courts in history before the pandemic even started. So Liz Truss, I'm afraid, up to her neck in the problems that have fueled the crisis in the courts that has now resulted in this strike that absolutely nobody wants to see. Now, Dominic Raab has been invited by the Criminal Bar Association, who represents barristers, to sit down and have a meeting 3 times this year. On each occasion they voted for taking action. They invited him to sit down and meet with them and said they would not take action if he did that. He simply refused. We have a zombie government in so many respects. They're not doing the things that a government or ministers should do. Whoever ends up as Justice Secretary tomorrow, under whoever ends up as Prime Minister, they need to do what I would do, which is go and sit down with the barristers and stop these strikes before they add even more problems to this crisis in the courts that the Conservative government has created.
OK. Steve Reid, we've got to leave it there. It's good to talk to you this morning. Thank you very much indeed. It'll be interesting to see if the new Prime Minister follows through on any of Mr Reid's suggestions there. If a meeting would stop those strikes.
Exactly.
We shall see, though.
Let us know your thoughts. Get in touch. We'd love to have you as part of the conversation. We're going to take a break. After that, we'll have more on today's announcement. The country's next Prime Minister with the Deputy Political Editor of the Daily Mirror, Ben Glaze. First, though, here's your Monday forecast. Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK's looking unsettled with some heavy rain in places, but it will be feeling warm. Let's take a look at the details. The southwest of England will start the afternoon largely dry with some sunshine. However, a scattering of heavy showers will begin to develop with the possibility of some hail and thunder in places. Southeast England and East Anglia may also see a few showers, but they'll be more hit and miss, here with some hazy spells of sunshine for many. Showers may also affect southern parts of Wales, but further north should be largely dry with some good spells of sunshine. The Midlands should also be largely dry with a mix of cloud and sunshine. The odd shower can't be ruled out though, but in the sunshine it will be feeling warm. It'll be pretty similar across northern England with many areas dry, but a few showers will pop up, especially across Cumbria and Northumberland. Temperatures at lunchtime will be around the low 20s. The morning rain across Scotland will still be lying across the northern half of the country this lunchtime, but further south should be turning brighter with a few showers developing. The best of the dry and bright weather through, though, will be across Northern Ireland with very little cloud in the sky here. It'll be feeling rather warm with temperatures in the high teens. So heading towards the evening, we'll see further heavy showers developing, especially in the south. And that's how your weather is shaping up for the rest of your Monday.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England,
Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
On TV.
On radio and online.
we're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's
News channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Liz Truss promises immediate action on energy bills if she's announced as Britain's next Prime Minister later today.
Good morning to you. It's 8 o'clock on Monday, the 5th of September. I can't believe it's the 5th already.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It's just like, where's the summer gone?
It's back to school for lots of children this morning. It's back to Parliament for lots of MPs. It's and truly back in the swing of things.
No sympathy for them, to be perfectly honest. Anyway, this is Breakfast on GB News with Isabel and Stephen, and here's what's in the headlines for you this morning.
The Conservative leadership election comes to an end at 12:30 today, with Liz Truss widely tipped to become Britain's new Prime Minister. She's vowed that if chosen, she'll act immediately to tackle soaring energy bills this week.
10 people are dead, at least 15 injured after a wave of deadly stabbings in Saskatchewan in Canada. 2 suspects are on the run and are thought to be armed and dangerous.
Criminal barristers in England and Wales begin an indefinite strike today after the government failed to meet their demand for increased legal aid fees. The Justice Secretary, Dominic Raab, has accused barristers of letting victims down.
And the Sussexes will attend the opening of a summit celebrating young leaders in Manchester today. They're reportedly staying on the Windsor estate while they're in the UK, but it's thought Harry and Meghan are not going to meet up with William and Catherine.
Don't forget, you can get in touch with us. Use the usual email addresses, or you can tweet us as well. We've got a few views we can share with you this morning. Colin's got in touch. All these romantic ideas to save money on washing, cooking and heating. It's romantic talking, but the reality is misery. People will be chained to their kitchens in domestic misery. A return to the 50s and 60s isn't the people's idea of fun. Energy security is what's needed. Open up our gas, coal and oil fields pronto.
It may not be fun, Colin, but perhaps it's just what we've got to do. Be a bit like Philip, who's been in touch. Morning, Philip. We have no washing machine, no dishwasher, no tumble dryer. We do it all ourselves. It's called elbow grease. Our biggest expense is the desktop computer, and I turn that off now instead of putting it to sleep. It says we have a TV that raises the temperature in the room by 1 degree in the first hour of the
Perhaps
day.
we're warming people's homes this morning.
Dear me. I mean, look, no dishwasher, no tumble dryer, I get it. No washing machine.
Yeah, it's hard.
That's
People have to make
hard
these
work.
decisions. Never mind eating and heating, it's eating and washing, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Don't forget this morning, as well as getting in touch with us, you can also use our GB News channel. You can subscribe to it on YouTube. It's completely free, and you'll have all the latest on the big stories that we're talking about this morning.
quick one on, I was going to say the Markles, but not the Markles, the Sussexes. Oh. Steve has been in touch. May I humbly suggest a new title for Meghan? We've had Mystic Meg during the lottery, now Mischief Meg with the Royals. Yeah, maybe you're right. And, you know, I have some sympathy with that view. However, maybe we're not getting the real facts of what's going on. I don't know. But I've been a little bit intrigued by the interview in The Cut, which is a magazine, apparently, where she was making some very odd comments about, you know, the wedding and how it was received in South Africa. All this which seems to be absolute pie in the sky. So I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. I don't like hating on people. I don't think that's a very nice thing to do. But
it's difficult.
I just find it all very strange.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Look, we'll be talking about the Royals this morning, but all of our focus, of course, today very much on the fact the Conservative leadership race is coming to an end altogether now. Phew. Hooray! New Prime Minister being announced at 12:30 this afternoon.
Now, of course, we're expecting it to be Liz Truss. That's what the pollsters are saying. Might not be, you never know.
You never know.
But she said she will move immediately to announce a support package to help people struggling with their energy bills.
Well, let's bring in Ben Glaze. He's the Deputy Political Editor of the Daily Mirror and joins us in the studio to discuss all of this. Just looking at your front page this morning, Truss, wait a week for crisis plan. I saw some of the headlines saying another week Prime Minister, a clever headline there. Is a week too long for people to wait, given, you know, the weeks of anxiety after that price cap freeze was lifted in August?
That's right. We've known that the price cap is going to be lifted on October the 1st. Liz Truss has had 8 weeks of planning to become Prime Minister, months before that. If, you know, we know that she's dreamed of this job for a long time. The fact that she's going to be announced as the new Conservative leader at 12:30 today and might wait another week to tell us what her plan is. You know, families are desperate. Why do we have to wait another few days?
Why do you think people are going to have to wait another week? Because we know she's, in essence, assembled the bones of a cabinet. We know Kwasi Kwarteng is likely to be the Chancellor. You can only imagine they've been spending their evenings sat together, getting this all planned out, ready for a budget on Thursday.
Well, one would hope so, especially as they only live a few doors away from each other in Greenwich and South East London. Yet in her interview yesterday, she said that, you know, the precise plans might need tweaking. Well, what's she been doing for the last few weeks?
Well, she's been quite busy, to be fair, with a relentless schedule of hustings and the like, which, on the face of it, looking back on all this, when the vast majority of Conservative Party members we've spoken to cast their votes within the first 2 weeks of the contest, it begs the question, doesn't it, after all of this, whether or not the way the Conservative Party select their leaders needs to be looked at, because this is the 4th Conservative Prime Minister in 6 years to be chosen not at the polls, but through toppling of a minister, or of a Prime Minister, by the party.
That's right. It's gone on a long time, this Conservative leadership contest. And I've been to several of the hustings, and they're just repeating the same things over and over again. And the value of it, where so many of the members, we think, voted early, you know, they weren't even listening to hear the arguments, and this 0.2% of the population choosing our next leader, our next Prime Minister, I think the Conservatives will want to look at this process so that when the next leadership contest comes along, which might not be that far away, there is a different system in place.
They say that it's interesting, though, isn't it? If she comes out with all guns blazing on this and starts unveiling packages which are going to make whether you think they're the right ones or not, but that are going to make a significant difference to people's lives immediately, within a matter of days, then she could very well win a general election if there was one, couldn't she?
I think everything's thrown into flux, really, with the introduction of a new Prime Minister. You know, Labour has to work out how it's going to deal with a new Prime Minister. You've gone from one bumbling male Prime Minister to a female Prime Minister. You know, Keir Starmer's not faced her at the dispatch box yet. We'll get that at noon, should she become the leader. We get that at noon on Wednesday. So a new approach will be needed. Keir Starmer actually told me on Friday that he's unfazed by the prospect of facing Liz Truss or indeed Rishi Sunak, but there is going to be a new approach needed. So yeah, the first few weeks of a new premiership, that will sort of be very important in what happens at the next general election, because those impressions are made early.
It's interesting, though, isn't it? Because it is a new face, it is a new start, without there being a general election. And doesn't that make Keir Starmer just look even more stale?
I'm not sure stale would be the right word.
He's hardly dynamic, is he?
He's only been leader for sort of 2.5 years, and a lot of that was affected by coronavirus and the various restrictions where he couldn't get out and meet people. And we've got the party conference season coming up in the next few weeks. So I know that Keir Starmer is looking forward to setting out his policy platform, where criticism of Labour has been being slightly light on the policy so far. Obviously, the criticism of that criticism is that you don't want to set out too many policies too early because all the best ones get stolen.
Well, but that's the exact argument that Steve Reid was just making against Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak in terms of a policy plan for dealing with the energy crisis. Well, why haven't they talked about it in the last 6 weeks, last 8 weeks? Well, presumably because the other candidate would have nicked it.
Well,
I mean, come on, it works both ways.
Everything always works both ways, obviously, but one of those two will, of course, become the Prime Minister, not elected by us, the voters, only by the Conservative Party membership and activists, where, of course, Starmer will have to face a general election in the next couple of years so people can decide whether or not they want those Labour policies enacted.
Right. Well, one of the hugest challenges for whoever is successful today will be to try and unite a party that has been arguing for a while. Ben Glaze, I want to bring in somebody who voted in all of this, Eric Twigg. He is a GB News viewer, joins us from Sandhurst in Berkshire. Eric, I believe you're a Rishi Sunak supporter. If Liz Truss does go on to win at lunchtime today, will you be able to find it within yourself as a Conservative to support her?
Sorry, let me correct one thing.
You're not a member.
I'm not a Conservative member,
Apologies.
and I didn't vote. But to answer the question, yes, I will, because she will become our Prime Minister. And I agree with what a lot of your commentators have said this morning, is that Liz has got a huge job, which is to basically get the announcement out about the energy cost. How she's going to help people. And one of the things I heard a few days ago was from the CEO of OVO, who is not my electricity supplier, but he said basically do some sort of cap for the first so many kilowatts of power being used, and then go on from there. And that will help particularly the lower paid people with smaller houses, etc.
That was a very interesting interview that he gave, actually. He came up with some pretty solid ideas. But do you think Liz Truss, if she wins, is the sort of person who's going to listen to these people?
I'm sure she will listen to them and then give a completely different answer to a completely different question. She's a politician.
Well, that doesn't give us a lot of confidence. What about, I mean, do you think there's going to be some announcement quickly? I mean, Ben Glaze here from the Mirror saying, well, it could be another week waiting for some real movement on this. Do you think we'll get something before then, or are we going to have to wait?
No, I think what she's given herself is basically she doesn't want to overcommit. And I'm really hopeful, as a lot of people are, it will be a couple of days, and that she will give an announcement before the weekend. That's what I'm hoping for.
All right, Eric Twigg in Sandhurst in Berkshire. Ben Glaze from the Mirror in the studio with us. Thank you both very much indeed for joining us. We're going to go to Downing Street now. Tom Harwood there for us with the very latest. A big day for Downing Street today. Just give us a sense of the chronology of this week, if you will. Chronology.
Certainly, yes. We all know that the 8-week-long Conservative leadership contest formally closes today, even though voting ended, of course, at 5 p.m. on Friday last week. 12:30 is the time to mark in your calendars. That is when we will hear the announcement, the result, which seems pretty certain now, Liz Truss becoming the next leader of the Conservative Party at lunchtime today. Following that, a lot of the action on this street actually happens tomorrow. Boris Johnson having his last speech as Prime Minister on the steps of Downing Street before flying off to Balmoral. Of course, the kissing of hands with the Queen, the formal appointment of the next Conservative Party leader as Prime Minister happens tomorrow. And then, if it is Liz Truss, she flies back down on the Prime Ministerial jet to London and makes her first speech as Prime Minister from the steps of Downing Street tomorrow afternoon. And after that, of course, it's the cabinet appointments, and we will see a huge roster of senior Conservative MPs walking down this street. We'll have the guessing game, who is getting what, although the rumours seem to be pretty dead set on at least the top team, the so-called great offices of state, the Chancellor, the Foreign Secretary and the Home Secretary. It looks fairly certain that Kwasi Kwarteng, currently Business Secretary, a long-standing ally of Liz Truss, they entered Parliament together in 2010. They've even written a book together and have had a close working relationship as well. It's looking odds-on that Kwasi Kwarteng will be our next Chancellor, moving in to number 11 Downing Street. As for Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly is the name heavily tipped to take that post. He served as a Foreign Office Minister under Liz Truss. He was an early backer of hers. Currently, as Education Secretary, he's been Conservative Party chairman as well in the past and is seen to be an ideological ally of Liz Truss, someone on the more Thatcherite right of the Conservative Party. As for Home Secretary, it looks like Priti Patel will lose her spot there to Suella Braverman, someone who stood herself to become leader of the Conservative Party at the start of this contest. It feels like a very long time ago, but when she was knocked out in those early stages of the MP rounds of this contest, she quickly endorsed Liz Truss, crucial in getting Liz Truss some of that early momentum in her campaign, particularly with the sort of ERG votes, the Spartan votes of those hardline Brexiteers within the parliamentary Conservative Party. So those are a bit of a taster of the appointments that we could see. Other names that are being thrown around, of course, Kemi Badenoch has been tipped to have something relatively senior in Liz Truss's administration, and even names like John Redwood, someone who hasn't been in cabinet for a very, very long time. Of course, a former aide to Margaret Thatcher, a former economic advisor to Margaret Thatcher, may be brought back into the Treasury as well. That's all to come. The appointments starting on Wednesday afternoon and going through until Thursday as well. Of course, on Wednesday morning there is expected to be a cabinet meeting, followed of course by Prime Minister's questions at midday on Wednesday. Now, I'm going to wrap up because the delightful Mr. Steve Bray has turned up with his enormously noisy megaphone, and it's really quite exciting the street here, so I think now's an opportune moment to hand back to you guys.
Yes, thank heavens. Tom, thank you very much indeed. He gets everywhere, does Mr. Bray, doesn't he? John's been in touch. Morning, John. Looking at Liz Truss winning. Big, bold announcement, he says. Massive tax cuts for the rich. How about that as a red wall winning vote strategy? Incompetent, desperately unfluent, hopelessly uninformed. I give her until Christmas. Boris will be back.
Oh,
nothing like looking on the positive side, John.
Steve's talking about the NHS, that the NHS and other emergency services will be overwhelmed this winter, unlike anything we've witnessed so far. Whoever is elected as the new Prime Minister will need to take immediate action to prevent this crisis happening. There's so much on that in tray, isn't there? So much. I wouldn't want that job.
There is. We were talking with Kate Hardcastle earlier on about saving money on our appliances and things. Clive, morning Clive, a man of great sense. Clive, it has to be said, $4.99 for a cheap clothes dryer, i.e. a washing line, no electric required, use indoors or out.
True that.
I mean, it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Well, you haven't included the cost of pegs.
Yeah, and also the condensation it can cause sometimes inside your house when you're drying laundry. Then you have to pay for new windows at some stage. Anyway, there's no easy answers to all of this. We're going to take a look at all the headlines at 8:16, bring you right up to date. Let's cross over to Canada. At least 10 people there have been killed, 15 injured after mass stabbings in central Saskatchewan province. The attacks happened in the James Smith Cree Nation and nearby village of Weldon. Police are hunting for two suspects, Damien Sanderson and Miles Sanderson, who were on the run in a black Nissan Rogue. Officers say they're considered armed and dangerous.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex are making their first public appearance in the UK since the Platinum Jubilee. They're heading to Manchester for the One Young World Summit. It's an event bringing together young leaders from more than 190 different countries. Meghan's giving the keynote speech.
Petrol drivers continue to get a raw deal at the pumps despite a record price drop last month. That's according to a new analysis. The RAC says average forecourt prices dropped to 169.8 pence per litre at the end of August. That's the largest monthly fall since records began.
Now, police in Merseyside have arrested 3 people in relation to the murder of 9-year-old Olivia Pratt-Corbel.
A 34-year-old man's been arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder, while 2 more have been arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender. That's the very latest from our North West reporter, Sophie Reaper, who's live for us in Liverpool this morning. Good morning to you, Sophie. What more can you tell us?
Well, a very good morning to you both. It's been 2 weeks now since 9-year-old schoolgirl Olivia Pratt-Corbel was shot and killed in her family home here behind me. Ever since, Merseyside police have urged members of the public to ignore the grass culture that exists in this part of the country and instead to come forward with any information they may have. Now, yesterday we did get some developments. A 34-year-old man from Liverpool was arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder, whilst a 41-year-old man from Knowsley was arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender. A little bit later in the day, we heard that a 29-year-old man was also arrested in the Liverpool area, also on suspicion of assisting an offender. Now, of course, these aren't the first arrests in this case. A few days after Olivia's death, 2 more men were arrested, a 36-year-old man from Huyton and a 33-year-old man from Dovecot. They were both arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder. They've both been released on bail, whereas the 3 men arrested yesterday remain in custody. We also found out last week that Olivia's funeral will take place this Thursday. That's going to happen at the church next door to the primary school where she should have been returning to. Mourners have been asked to wear pink in her memory. And as her family prepare to say goodbye to Olivia, Merseyside police remain adamant that they're going to find her killer, and their message to the people of Merseyside and beyond remains the same. Silence is not an option.
OK, Sophie, thanks very much for now. Don't go anywhere here on GB News, because coming up, care home residents and the vulnerable, of course, are going to be eligible for the latest COVID booster from today. But how do you get it? We'll give you all the details in a couple of minutes.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking unsettled with some heavy rain in places, but it will be feeling warm. Let's take a look at the details. The southwest of England will start the afternoon largely dry with some sunshine. However, a scattering of heavy showers will begin to develop with the possibility of some hail and thunder in places. Southeast England and East Anglia may also see a few showers, but they'll be more hit and miss, here with some hazy spells of sunshine for many. Showers may also affect southern parts of Wales, but further north should be largely dry with some good spells of sunshine. The Midlands should also be largely dry with a mix of cloud and sunshine. The odd shower can't be ruled out though, but in the sunshine it will be feeling warm. It'll be pretty similar across northern England with many areas dry, but a few showers will pop up, especially across Cumbria and Northumberland. Temperatures at lunchtime will be around the low 20s. The morning rain across Scotland will still be lying across the northern half of the country this lunchtime, but further south should be turning brighter with a few showers developing. The best of the dry and bright weather through, though, will be across Northern Ireland with very little cloud in the sky here. It'll be feeling rather warm with temperatures in the high teens. So heading towards the evening, we'll see further heavy showers developing, especially in the south. And that's how your weather is shaping up for the rest of your Monday.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
On radio and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
It's 8:23. Welcome back. Still to come on the programme this morning.
But with the courts at breaking point and crime on the rise, is now the right time for barristers to go on strike? We'll ask the head of the Criminal Bar Association at 8:45.
And speaking of court, we'll be live outside the Royal Courts of Justice around 9:10. The government's Rwanda asylum plan is being challenged there. We'll have all the latest on that for you then.
Yeah, send us your thoughts through, would you, on anything, even if it's just something nice and jolly. We need something to smile about. We say that every morning, but we really do. GBviews at gbnews.uk or tweet us at gbnews.
Now, millions of people in England and Scotland will be invited for their autumn COVID booster from today, with care home residents the first to receive them.
Now, while infections have been falling, that's the good news. Medical professionals are concerned there may be a spike in the colder months. So they're telling us to sign up to get boosted. Let's get more from consultant virologist Chris Smith. Chris, good morning to you. Look, who is going to be eligible for this then, and how do they get it?
Well, the first thing is that people who are eligible and waiting for it will be told. So wait for them to call you, don't call them in the first instance. But there is a government wish list of people who are at highest risk. And at the top of that list are the people you just mentioned, people who are in care homes, people in residential care who have long-term health problems. They will be the top of the priority list also because they have been the longest since they last had any kind of booster or vaccine. So the longer time that passes, the greater the risk that you've lost your immunity. Also on the list, anyone who's over the age of 12 and has any kind of immune problem, people with chronic diseases, that kind of thing. So there's a group of people who we've become quite familiar with who they are over the course of the pandemic, judged to be at highest risk. They'll be called first in a descending priority order, and at the bottom of that descending priority order is anyone who's over the age of 50. So it's quite a wide scope, but they're not being called immediately. It's the people who are at the greatest risk, the older people, the over 75s first on that list.
OK, and is that how it's going to be now forevermore, that every 6 months or so, in descending order, people will be called back for a booster? And does the evidence seem to suggest that these jabs only work in the short term?
Well, there are two things to consider. The first one is that immunity to coronavirus is not judged to be long-lived. And the reason for that is twofold. Again, it's rules of twos today, isn't it? One of them is that the virus changes. The other is that your immune response changes. And as a result of the fact that your immune response does drop away with time, and that's a factor for everybody, but it's most acute and most marked in older people, you need to keep topping it up. The virus is also a moving target, so we have to update the vaccines to make sure that they reflect best what is the dominant circulating form of the infection. And in fact, that's one of the new deliverables for this year, is that some of the vaccine companies have updated their vaccines. Moderna, for example, have now successfully trialled and had approved an updated version of their vaccine, which reflects the Omicron variant, which is circulating, as well as containing the original coronavirus, what we'll dub wild type, which started the whole thing off. So those factors are the most important. The other is that this is not a new thing, having a seasonal vaccine that we update with or review annually. We've been doing this for flu for decades, for example, and it looks like probably COVID vaccines will join the annual flu shot being offered to people who are judged to be at risk. And it's up to those people whether or not they take up the offer, obviously, but people are advised to do that because we know that probably, like other coronaviruses, it's going to increase in frequency in terms of numbers of cases in the wintertime, and you want to time your protection from the vaccine to coincide with, hopefully just ahead of the arrival of the autumn or winter surge, so you're best protected for the longest amount of time possible.
Of course, there are plenty of people out there who don't want the vaccine. They don't. I support the vaccine, but they don't trust it because they say it's all been rolled out so very quickly and what have you. Though not necessarily anti-vaxxers, as they were telling me at the weekend. However, because we've now had this vaccine for a couple of years, has there been more research? Do we know, is there more evidence to prove how safe it is?
Well, you could argue that we've done the world's biggest clinical trial ever with this. Billions of people have received these vaccines over a prolonged period of time, not once, but multiple times. And probably they've therefore been more thoroughly evaluated at greater scale and on a greater geography and range of different ethnicities than any kind of vaccine that we've ever tested in the history of medicine. And with that kind of data and that level of scrutiny, were there a strong link, at least in the 2-year time frame that we've so far been looking, between having the vaccine and adverse outcomes, we would have found it. And we haven't found, that we found some, obviously there are always going to be some side effects of vaccines, and we found one of them with the AstraZeneca vaccine. But on the grand scheme of things, the level of protection conferred is far greater than any risk that you engender by having the vaccine. If you think about who's being offered the vaccine, older people, your risk of dying of COVID was about 1% when the pandemic first broke these shores. With the vaccines, we're now down at a tenth of that. And if you look at the figures, about 3 to 5 million cases per week were going through the UK in this post-vaccine era. When we had that sort of level of circulation before vaccines, we were seeing thousands of people hospitalised. We were seeing hundreds and hundreds of people in intensive care or on ventilators. Those numbers are thankfully far, far fewer. Now we've got people with immunity thanks to vaccination.
OK, Chris Smith, consultant virologist and presenter of the Naked Scientists podcast. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
You're welcome.
Don't go anywhere. Lots coming up for you in just a couple of minutes, including The Papers with Sam Lister and Chris Akabusi. We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England,
Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's
news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
It is 8:32 on the nose. Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast on GB News. Let's bring you up to date with some headlines.
Today is the big day. Leadership hopeful Liz Truss is considering freezing energy bills for millions of UK households if she wins the Conservative Party leadership race. The Daily Telegraph is reporting she may introduce the freeze within weeks of her taking office.
A High Court challenge against the government plans to deport some asylum seekers to Rwanda starts today. In April, the Home Secretary signed a migrant agreement with Rwanda, but the first flight was grounded in June amid a series of legal challenges. A Home Office spokesperson defended the actions, saying Rwanda is a fundamentally safe and secure country with a track record of supporting asylum seekers.
A man's been arrested after climbing London's Shard. Emergency services were called to the tallest skyscraper in Britain yesterday after reports of a free climber making his way up the building. A 21-year-old has been arrested on suspicion of trespass and 2 others were arrested on suspicion of causing public nuisances. Picture appearing in lots of the papers today.
Well, sorry, I was just busy booking my
you're
COVID vaccine. Sorry.
Don't mind me. Of those papers, shall we take one last look through your Monday papers this morning?
Oh, why not?
Joined by the Olympian, Chris Akabusi, and the political editor for the Daily Express, Sam Lister. Welcome back to both of you. Chris, should we start with shoplifters? Tesco says they're going to get tough on them, as many people find they're turning to shoplifting as the only way they can afford to get through at the moment.
I think this is quite predictable. Where we are heading. John Allen's the chairman of Tesco, and he talks about acquisition offences.
Right, OK.
Lovely word. Acquisition offences, basically stealing and taking away. Now, what is clear is that you have career criminals who steal, that's their business. And you've got opportunists who go by. And most retailers factor that in their general expenses, etc. But what is unfactorable is this desperation element. And quite clearly, with the cost of living and the energy, etc., is coming down, many people are going to be forced into or going to make that unpalatable choice to steal in order to feed their families and take care of stuff. The question will be, can the police, have they got the resources to respond to this elevation? And can the courts deal with the influx as well? They're talking about tagging items. They do tag items, but there's some of the items that might be stolen, like general food stuff. You just can't tag that. So when this all kicks off, what will public opinion be? Will public be they need to be banged up to rights, or we understand and we're going to join you? So this is some of the tensions.
It's very difficult, isn't it? Because if you show leniency. Then that can be seen as an encouragement, almost a free pass to do it. But of course, what you don't want to do is start throwing the book at people who are doing something purely because they are desperate.
Yeah, well, it's as if you've got Granny shivering in the corner because you can't heat the house, and you realise, OK, if I heat the house, I can't feed my kids, you might go, OK, let's heat the house, keep Granny alive, and let's go and steal for the kids.
But you know what? It's never Granny who does the shoplifting, is it? It's,
No.
You know,
No, it's Bob the Builder. When I say Bob the Builder.
You know what? It's drug addicts very often. People who are already I mean, just in my experience, having seen shoplifting in my local shop, these aren't people who live in our community. These are people who are already having brushes with the law, and they look like people who are effectively.
But that's the people. That's the people that are factored in. So the chances it's the desperados and the new people who are law-abiding citizens normally who are doing this. So where I live, the thieves steal oil. So you've got your great big tanks of oil. Well, 4,500 litres in there. It costs you £2,000, £3,000 to fill it up. So they siphon that out and they take that away. That's a career criminal who does that. But this is Mr. and Mrs. on 20, 30 grand a year who wants to take care of Granny in the corner and feed their kids.
Yeah, but there's never any excuse to steal.
No, there isn't until it happens to you.
I don't think I'd ever steal, but then,
Well,
I don't know. I think we've got it's a time to show a few Christian values, I think.
You see, this is blue-collar stealing because we see plenty of white-collar stealing. And like you say, with all this money that's been given to furlough schemes, and you've had all sorts of fancy schemes where people in white collars have come up with fraud. That happens on a massive scale, and it has happened on a massive scale. But the working-class person, blue-collar worker, steals a pint of milk and is a criminal that everyone's hammering. Actually, we ought to be running after the white-collar person that's stolen the millions, not the 7p pint of milk.
Absolutely.
I saw that at supermarkets, if any supermarket bosses listening this morning, I'll tell you what you do. You get your stuff which is going to go out of date within 24 hours that you normally discount hugely anyway, and you put it to one side and you say, set up a counter. You know, if you're really, really struggling, come and see us and we'll give you this, or do it for 5p a loaf or something.
I got spot checked the other day in a supermarket.
What for?
Well, you know when you go to the big supermarkets and you can have a little gun and you do your checkout as you go? It's the only way I keep my kids entertained. Summer holidays, my son's got the little gun, my daughter's sitting in the thing and she shoves it in the bag. So we have a nice little time on our outing. We got to the till and they said, you've been selected for a spot check.
Oh, I get that all the time.
And I was like, oh, do I look like a shoplifter? I was so offended.
Do you know what? So, you know, you go out to these where there's no counter, it's just... And it gives you the choice, do you want a receipt?
Yeah.
I always take my receipt.
You can prove your innocence.
100%.
Yeah.
I'm always aware, don't care who you are, when you go out that door, if someone stops you, there you go, sir.
Yeah.
Or ma'am, I've paid for my food.
Yeah. Oh, I get checked like that all the time.
Well, you must have that look.
There's always some nice lady rifling through my shopping bag. But it's fine.
I passed with flying colours.
Oh,
You're all fine. I got all sweaty and anxious.
You see, it's guilty conscience, that. Free cash machines could be going, a lot of them in the Express, Sam.
Yeah, it's predicted 2/3 of free cash machines could go. And this is actually really serious because, obviously, if you are on a budget, we're talking about people really struggling now, cash is the way to budget, isn't it? It's in your hands, you can see it. Now, I confess, I very rarely use cash, but I do remember having difficult times and cash being absolutely crucial to knowing how much I had to get through to the end of the week. And it's basically saying because of rising cost pressures just generally in industry, actually the running costs of ATMs is going up. I mean, I don't know what the running costs are. I presume it's the petrol to fill up the cash machines and the electricity to run them. And it's saying that actually only the ones that are linked to supermarkets and banks are probably the ones that are going to stick around. That's going to make it really hard for people who are, want to see that cash in their hands, want to be able to count out how much they've got till the next payday. And I think it's going to be a real problem for people.
Yeah. It's an evolution, though, isn't it? Because you say people aren't using cash, and if you've got to hope people have got a bank account. Well, they need to use the cash machine anyway. But if you've got a debit card with no overdraw facility, then perhaps that is a way of budgeting. At least we've got apps and things now which you can see exactly how much is coming out of your account, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think though, like pensioners get their money through the credit card thing, and it's those guys who get their cash, as you were saying, and they know what they're spending for it, and they've done it all their life. They've done it for the 40s, 50s and 60s. I'm talking about the 1940s, 50s and 60s. And the year 2020, you're saying to them, no, put it all on tab, but I can't see it. £5 on a slip is not the same as £5 out of my pocket.
Totally. Sam, what's this about Liz Truss heading off to the United States? I suppose this is about the special relationship.
It will be the first question that we ask her, should she go on this trip to the US. We're expecting, if she does win today, that she will go to New York within a few weeks, because there is a meeting that's held every year, the United Nations, where leaders gather. So it's very likely that she will go to this meeting of world leaders. It will give her a good chance to meet President Biden and to kind of build relationships there. Now, obviously, since President Biden's come in, relations between the UK and the US haven't been perhaps as close as they could have been, and it's all down to Brexit and his Irish family history, and he takes a dim view of what's going on with the Northern Ireland Protocol. So she's going to try and, build a new relationship with him. Obviously, the big prize ultimately is to get a trade deal with the US. So it will be a really important trip for Liz Truss.
Yeah, no, it's got to be worked on. Meanwhile, in all of this, I mean, when this all kicked off, people were saying he's going to, Rishi Sunak's to lose.
Oh, yes.
So how did he blow his chances, according to the Eye?
Yeah, I enjoyed reading this piece, actually, in the Eye. And, fair and squarely, initially, he blew it by either being encouraged or having the naked ambition to stab the sitting Prime Minister in the back. Now, throughout history, I mean, if you're reading the Bible stories, you never stab the person in the back, because one day you want to be there. So quite clearly you're encouraging people to do that to yourself. And by stabbing the sitting Prime Minister in the back, he not only disenfranchised certain parts of members in the cabinet, Rees-Mogg and Sorry, I forgot her name. But anyway, but also the members, the voting members, the people that are going to be voting for the next Prime Minister, he's disenfranchised them. So that was the big faux pas initially.
But Barry wasn't alone in that. There were 60 ministerial resignations in the most extraordinary...
But he's the one who wants to be the next Prime Minister. So all those other guys don't matter.
Well, Sajid Javid also put his hat in the ring. And he was
no chance. But he had no chance.
Just to say, I mean, they weren't treated the same, I don't think.
No, because he was a Chancellor. He's right next door to the Prime Minister. He's sitting cheek by jowl. When there's 3 people on the table, he's going to be there, not the Health Secretary.
Sajid Javid was the Chancellor before. But anyway.
But the point being, he wants to be Prime Minister. He's sitting there now. So there was that. And then, if you remember, when they were having initial hustings, Miss Truss was under the radar, wasn't that great, learnt on the job. Richard Sunak was right out in front, wasn't he? Because all the people, the members, not members, the MPs wanted him. But once it changed and it was a 2-horse race, and whether it's been Penny Mordaunt or Miss Truss, Sunak went out there and did all of his talking to the electorate. Well, it's not the electorate that mattered. It is the small members that mattered. She spoke to the members. She's got it right. He's got it wrong. See you, Richie.
Is it arrogance, do you think?
Well, yeah, but just not being in tune. He's just not been in tune right from the get-go. For example, he had his pride of shoes, didn't he? 450 quid.
Yeah.
Miss Truss has got £4,500 readings. No one's talking about that because she's speaking to the members. He's speaking to the electorate. Yeah, he's just missed it all the way along. He's not been in tune with the people that matter at that moment in time. You can say, yeah, OK, once you become Prime Minister, clearly the electorate matter. Clearly you're fighting the opposition. But right there, right then, having stabbed the Prime Minister in the back, you've got to win over the members. He got it wrong.
Yeah, interesting.
I think Chris is absolutely bang on the money there. I mean, it really is. It's so true that I don't think the membership will ever really forgive him. You know, Boris Johnson, they would still rather have Boris Johnson than either Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak. And so for him to be seen as the one who was basically the key architect of his demise, whether it was intentional or not, I just don't think they've ever forgiven him.
Well, I mean, it was. I mean, part of the issue, I think, was the fact that he did it. Oh, I'm acting on a matter of conscience, and then he's he discovered readyforrishi.com has been, has been there since Christmas or whatever.
The matter of conscience would have been right then when he started tinkering with the video, when he's getting his lecture profile ready. See, because there was a time when Richie was top of the pack. Everyone knew him. He's the Chiefy Chancellor, doling out money, furloughs. I'm your man. OK, if you want to be the man, come out then and say, you know what, I'm coming for your job, Boris. And then let him and Boris go ding-dong.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He had, stealth, dagger in the back, and they said, OK, the right time. Well, actually, I mean, I don't think it was coordinated, but him and Savage, boom, boom. Double sucker punch. You know what I mean? So, no, he's got it wrong. I think out of the two, he's actually probably would have been the better Prime Minister. I think, he's articulate, he's across the brief, he's not second-guessing, he doesn't need other people around him to say what... Whereas I think...
Well, see, that's interesting, because you said he got it wrong all the way through the campaign because he wasn't playing to the correct electorate, but you'd think he'd be a better Prime Minister. Other people would say he was just trying to argue for what he believed in, which is the truth, and not changing it depending on who he was talking to. Either you think something or you don't.
Yeah.
Where politicians fall down, in my humble opinion, is that they try and please the people that they're talking to rather than actually, hold fast to values.
Yeah, but you're right. But, I mean, over the other side... what does Mr Starmer stand for? Have you heard from Mr Starmer? You've heard diddly squat, because he knows, say nothing, you can't get it wrong, because in 2 years' time, I'm going to be there by default, not design.
Yeah, look, a quick word before we move on glad rags. We're putting them on, according to the Times, Sam.
Yeah, this is a cheery article. There's lots of lovely feathered hats going on here and beautiful coloured costumes. It's basically John Lewis. They've done their analysis of what shoppers are buying this year. And thankfully, soup makers, bread makers, wall-mounted desks are out, tracksuits over. Instead, we're buying big hats, cheery dresses, lots of nice, colourful things so we can go out and celebrate our freedom. Now, obviously, with everything that's coming down the track...
What freedom?
You've got to make the most of it, post-COVID.
The summertime, the summertime when you was going, when you was dancing in the aisles and stuff.
I think it's true. I went to 3 parties this weekend and I'm exhausted, so
you're looking good on it, though, Isabel. You're looking good on it.
No more partying. Thank you both very much indeed.
Good to see you.
Bless you.
It is 8:47. Let's bring you up to date with some of the headlines this morning.
So, the Tory leadership hopeful Liz Truss is considering freezing energy bills for millions of UK households if she wins the Conservative Party leadership race. The Daily Telegraph reports she may introduce the freeze within weeks of her taking office.
At least 10 people have been killed and 15 injured after mass stabbings in Canada's central Saskatchewan province. The attacks happened in the James Smith Cree Nation and nearby village of Weldon. Police are hunting for two suspects, Damien Sanderson and Miles Sanderson, who are apparently in a black Nissan Rogue. Officers say they're considered dangerous.
Petrol drivers continue to get a raw deal at the pumps despite a record price drop last month. That's according to new analysis. The RAC says average forecourt prices dropped to 169.8 pence per litre at the end of August, the largest monthly drop since records began.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex will make their first public appearance in the UK since returning for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. They're heading to Manchester today for the One Young World Summit, an event bringing together young leaders from more than 190 countries.
Now, as we've been discussing this morning, barristers from today across England and Wales will be starting their continuous walkout strike for justice over jobs and pay.
And the Bar Council has found that some barristers are only getting £6.25 an hour, which is, of course, less than the minimum wage.
Well, earlier this morning, the Shadow Justice Secretary, Steve Reid, had this to say on the matter.
Wants to see a strike in the courts. Barristers in their gowns and their wigs are not a naturally militant group. They've never gone out on strike before. In fact, what's going on is we have a broken criminal justice system, and Liz Truss was a former Justice Secretary. When she was in that role, she reduced the number of judges and sold off some of the courts, fueling what became the biggest backlog in our courts in history before the pandemic even started. So Liz Truss, I'm afraid, up to her neck in the problems that have fueled the crisis in the courts that has now resulted in this strike that absolutely nobody wants to see. Now, Dominic Raab has been invited by the Criminal Bar Association, who represents barristers, to sit down and have a meeting 3 times this year. On each occasion they voted for taking action. They invited him to sit down and meet with them and said they would not take action if he did that. He simply refused. We have a zombie government in so many respects. They're not doing the things that a government or ministers should do.
Well, let's talk to Sean Wallace, a criminal barrister who you also may recognise, of course, from The Chase, and Kirsty Brimelow from the Criminal Bar Association. They're both in the studio. Good to see you both this morning. Nice to see you. Can I start with you in the sense that is he right? Was Steve Reid right, Kirsty, when he said you've invited Dominic Raab? If he'd have come to talk to you, this wouldn't have happened.
It's difficult to say it wouldn't have happened, but it would have been a start, actually, to have a discussion and to open up negotiations. This is a real crisis, and it's a crisis that the criminal bar has warned government of for many months. The action that now has culminated in an indefinite action of barristers not going to court has built from April of this year, from April the 11th. So there's been a huge opportunity and a lot of space in order to avert barristers taking this action as an absolute last resort.
Sean, I want to ask you, I don't know if you're going to be part of this.
Absolutely,
strike.
I've been there front and centre.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't necessarily think of barristers as struggling for cash. Many, obviously, at the top of their game, very well paid. But just give us a sense of how disproportionate that pay gap is and why this needs to happen now. Because we heard from Steve Reid saying this isn't usually a sort of militant striking organisation.
It isn't. As I say, barristers don't come into the profession simply to earn money. They come to the profession to try and help the underprivileged within society. Now, for the last 30 or so years, there's been a dramatic decrease in relation to the funding of criminal legal aid. And in relation to that, especially so far as the pandemic is concerned, we've seen a drop of around 23%, even further due to the pandemic. What's really sad and really disappointing is that the government, as Kirsty said, has failed to actually even engage in proper negotiations with lawyers in relation to trying to come to a proper resolution to try and actually end this strike. It's a last resort. It's something which we haven't taken lightly. Remember, lawyers are self-employed. And for us to take this dramatic step of not receiving any fees throughout this indefinite strike really means that it's important to actually bring this situation to the public attention.
But you say you don't go into it for the money. You go into it to help the underprivileged. Well, the underprivileged are going to suffer as a result of this, aren't they?
They are, as I say, in relation to, as I say, it is a last resort. But the reality is that the delays in relation to cases which have been built up exponentially over the last 2 to 3 years is basically due to the government inaction in terms of chronic underfunding.
Well, Kirsty, I mean, talking about, you know, the meeting that you would like to have and the conversation you'd like to have about pay, I mean, we're seeing them, aren't we, right across different sectors at the moment, and there is a huge amount of pressure on the government at a time, and as we've been discussing widely throughout the programme, there is a cost of living crisis. How hopeful are you that some resolution will be able to be met, and what do you see as the future of the court if it isn't?
Yes, I mean, first of all, this has been going on for years. An independent review into legal aid was commissioned back in 2018, and it eventually reported at the end of last year. And the report has been with government for some 9 months now, and it makes very clear recommendations. It says that the criminal justice system is in crisis after years of neglect, and it makes absolutely no bones about it that there can be no further delay. And yet we're still in this position where there's been no increase to legal aid for barristers. And also we've seen barristers really just leaving the profession in droves. And so unless there's action now and immediately, we won't have a criminal bar, we won't have a criminal justice system in the future. So there has to be a meeting literally tomorrow.
So what do you need to say? I mean, it seems a ridiculous situation to say, well, criminal barristers need at least to be on minimum wage. I mean, that's what it boils down to, isn't it?
It does seem... it's almost like, how do we get to this position that we're arguing that a professional who is there defending and prosecuting criminal cases in court should be paid you know, more than £6 plus an hour. It's ridiculous that it's been cut, that we're in this situation. And I've not heard any dissenting voice across any sector, including the political sector, other than government. And the independent report is very clear. And so, in answer to your question, if this is not resolved immediately, we will not in the future have sufficient barristers to prosecute crime, to prosecute the serious crime, the murders, the rapes, sexual offences, to prosecute the everyday crime, which is serious to people, the burglaries, the robberies, the shopliftings, the thefts in the street. And we will not have a criminal justice system anymore that we can say internationally we're really proud of. It's no longer functioning, and it's so depressing, as Sean has said, that we've been forced into this situation. So we hope it's going to be resolved, but really, action from government needs to start this week.
And Sean, interesting, I was reading some comments that you've made about the impact this could all have on the sorts of people that end up going into the profession.
Absolutely.
Because the profession's made huge strides, hasn't it? And it could end up being only, you know, affordable for people who come from very wealthy backgrounds to pursue it as a career.
I've been a barrister for the last 38 years, and what I've seen is a dramatic paradigm shift in relation to the entrance into the profession in terms of age, gender, sexuality, disability, based upon their talent. And if we have a diverse society in which we live, we need to have a legal profession which represents that diversity. And bearing in mind that entrants who come into the profession, firstly, we're saddled with university debt. Secondly, we're saddled with fees in terms of trying to qualify as a barrister. And they've gone into the profession not, as I say, to actually earn money, but to try and make a difference in terms of using their skills to try and help the underprivileged and the underrepresented. And if you get a situation whereby after 3 years a junior barrister earns £12,000 a year, which has already been pointed out is equates to £6.25 per hour, or young junior barristers who actually earn £126 per day, where sometimes they have to prepare the cases, they've got to go outside London, that's expenses, that is before tax. It's going to have a demoralising effect. And what you're going to have, the reality is that the talent which we need, a diverse talent, is simply going to be deflected away from the profession. And sadly, we're going to go back to a regressive situation whereby the nature of the makeup of the bar is going to be for the wealthy, privileged few.
Yeah, which doesn't actually help us all out at all, does it? Sean Wallace, Kirsty Brimlow, good to see you both.
Thank you.
very
Thank
much
you.
indeed.
Very much. Thank you.
Don't go anywhere, we're talking to Team Rishi in a couple of minutes.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK's looking unsettled with some heavy rain in places, but it will be feeling warm. Let's take a look at the details. The southwest of England will start the afternoon largely dry with some sunshine. However, a scattering of heavy showers will begin to develop with the possibility of some hail and thunder in places. South East England and East Anglia may also see a few showers, but they'll be more hit and miss here with some hazy spells of sunshine for many. Showers may also affect southern parts of Wales, but further north should be largely dry with some good spells of sunshine. The Midlands should also be largely dry with a mix of cloud and sunshine. The odd shower can't be ruled out though, but in the sunshine it will be feeling warm. It'll be pretty similar across northern England with many areas dry, but a few showers will pop up, especially across Cumbria and Northumberland. Temperatures at lunchtime will be around the low 20s. The morning rain across Scotland will still be lying across the northern half of the country this lunchtime, but further south should be turning brighter with a few showers developing. The best of the dry and bright weather through, though, will be across Northern Ireland with very little cloud in the sky here. It'll be feeling rather warm with temperatures in the high teens. So heading towards the evening, we'll see further heavy showers developing, especially in the south. And that's how weather is shaping up for the rest of your Monday.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
On radio and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's
news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Liz Truss promises immediate action on energy bills if she's announced as Britain's next Prime Minister today.
Good morning, it's 9 o'clock, it's Monday the 5th of September. You're watching and listening to Breakfast on GB News with Isabel, Webster and Stephen Dixon.
Here's what's leading the news for you this morning. The Conservative leadership election comes to an end 12:30 today. Liz Truss tipped to be the next Prime Minister. She's vowed that if she's chosen, she's going to act immediately to tackle soaring energy bills.
10 people are dead and 15 are injured after a wave of deadly stabbings in Saskatchewan in Canada. 2 suspects are on the run and are considered armed and dangerous.
The legal challenge will be heard at the High Court this morning against the government's Rwanda asylum plan. It comes as a record 27,000 migrants crossed the Channel this year alone.
And the Sussexes will attend the opening of a summit celebrating young leaders in Manchester today. They're reportedly staying on the Windsor estate while in the country, but it's thought they won't be meeting with Prince William and Catherine.
Love to hear from you this morning. GB Views at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us, of course, at GB News.
And you can subscribe to the GB News channel on YouTube to get all the latest on the big stories everyone's talking about.
It's all about the leadership race, of course. Mark's been in touch already. Morning, Mark. Given the response, he says, in the wider Conservative Party, why didn't Boris throw his hat into the ring to be leader? It was only the ministerial resignations that forced him to resign. He's very popular. If he'd stood again, I think it would be him versus Rishi in the final choice, and Boris would have walked it. I guess, though, he'd never have made it past the MP stage. They'd never have got him down to the last two.
Mel's got in touch. Thank you for your email, Mel. She says, I don't want to hear any more about Rishi. He doesn't care about us anyway this winter. He can just take his California surfboard, green card, bespoke beach sandals and shades, and off he goes.
And Marianne said, you never get that warm feeling of sincerity from someone who stabbed someone else in the back like Sunak did. With Liz, what you see is what you get. Well, you are likely to get Liz Truss as leader of the Conservative Party, 12:30 this afternoon. She would therefore become Prime Minister tomorrow.
Yes, so she's widely, as Stephen was saying, expected to beat Rishi Sunak, and has said that she will move immediately to announce a support package to help people struggling with their energy bills as soon as this week.
OK, let's head down to Downing Street and our political correspondent, Tom Harwood. Morning, Tom. I mean, to be honest, to be perfectly honest, if Rishi Sunak wins this, that's going to be an absolute shell shock, isn't it?
Oh, certainly. I think it would be a shell shock on the scale of the entire polling establishment of this country having a really hard look at itself, perhaps even closing down. Because ultimately what we're seeing is huge sustained leads for Liz Truss, between 25 and 30-point leads, not just in a couple of polling companies, but across the board. There is no polling company that puts the lead of Liz Truss within the margin of error. It's pretty much certainty. Or as close to certain as you can get, as confident as you can become in any of these processes, that Liz Truss has won this race. And that means that at 12:30 today, we will hear that result, a short speech from Liz Truss when that announcement is made, and then she goes to prepare for government, because whilst she may become leader of the Conservative Party this afternoon, it's not until tomorrow that we get the exchange of prime ministers, with both Boris Johnson and his successor flying up to Balmoral to kiss the hand of the Queen for that formal exchange of power. Before Boris Johnson goes up to Balmoral tomorrow, he'll make a short speech on the steps of Downing Street, his final as Prime Minister. That'll be here on breakfast tomorrow morning, and then by the time that Liz has flown up to Balmoral and back down again on that prime ministerial plane, it'll be the afternoon when she will make her first speech as Prime Minister here in Downing Street. And from that moment onwards, it's the cabinet appointments. And we've got a fairly clear idea of who at least will be part of her top team. The great offices of state, so they're called: the Treasury, the Home Office and the Foreign Office. Well, of course, Liz Truss was Foreign Secretary, is still Foreign Secretary, and it's likely her successor in that role will be James Cleverly, currently Education Secretary, was a Foreign Office Minister under Liz Truss for a long time. He was also previously chairman of the Conservative Party, one of Liz Truss's early backers, and someone seen to be on the Thatcherite wing of the Conservative Party, ideologically aligned with Liz Truss. As for Home Secretary, it looks like it will not be Priti Patel, but Suella Braverman who will take that post. Suella Braverman, of course, stood to be leader of the Conservative Party herself at the start of this process, was knocked out in the MP rounds and quickly endorsed Liz Truss, a key figure in terms of getting the European Research Group MPs endorsing Liz Truss and propelling her to the premiership. So Home Secretary likely for Suella Braverman. And as for the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Well, it looks like it'll be Kwasi Kwarteng. He is a close ally of Liz Truss. They entered Parliament in 2010 at the same time, co-authored a book together, Britannia Unchained, much discussed that book, but also he has been a close ally of hers throughout their time in Cabinet together. Likely that Kwasi Kwarteng will move into number 11 tomorrow. And then after those Cabinet appointments are made, Wednesday morning, a Cabinet meeting, and midday Wednesday, of course, Prime Minister's questions. And perhaps it will be this week, but certainly within 7 days, that we will hear what is being reported as a shock and awe strategy of help with energy bills, addressing the most significant crisis that this country and indeed consumers in this country have faced for a long time. But that's the process that we will see over the next few days in this street. It will be a flurry of activity. But just finally, to answer the question that Mark wrote in to us this morning to ask why didn't Boris Johnson stand as a candidate in this election? Well, I'm afraid even if he wanted to, it is not allowed under the rules of the Conservative Party. Yes, they foresaw such a scenario where a leader may resign and then stand again. That is explicitly ruled out in the Conservative Party leadership election rules. So even if Boris Johnson had wanted to do that, the rules wouldn't have let him.
OK, Tom. Very good.
Yes, very interesting, Tom. Thank you. He's a font of all knowledge.
Yes.
Is that I've got a question for you, because you will have heard all that annoying music in the background. Steve Bray, who you will probably recognise, is often in the papers with his anti-Brexiteer fella. We've got a right to protest in this country, that's fine. But if I stood in the middle of the street with a stereo and played music very loudly, I'm pretty sure the police would be on me pretty quickly and telling me I was causing a public nuisance.
Yeah, well...
So why not there? That's what I don't get. Why not?
I'll tell you, whoever is moving into number 10 needs to make sure they pack their earplugs. It sounds pretty noisy there. Let's speak to Mark Harper. He's Conservative MP for the Forest of Dean and, as we've known throughout the whole contest, a big supporter of Rishi Sunak. We're in the final hours now until we find out who will be our new Prime Minister. All eyes, obviously, as you well know, on Liz Truss to succeed Boris Johnson. First of all, I want to get your thoughts then on the shape of the kind of cabinet that we just heard Tom outlining there. Very diverse background in terms of ethnicity. What do you think about the sort of lineup that we're hearing touted at the moment?
Well, look, we're obviously going to get the result at 12:30, but I mean, look, I think you're right. Liz is clearly the favourite to take over, and Rishi was the underdog through this contest. So, you know, working on the assumption that it's her, I think she would be well advised. And in fact, she said this herself during the contest, that she wanted to appoint a cabinet from across the party with all of the most talented people from across the party to help bring the party together. And she got a lot of support from our party members when she set that out. I think they want the Parliamentary Party to come behind her as leader if she is elected today. And I think a broad-based cabinet would help that approach, given the massive challenges that are in the in-tray facing whoever wins the contest today.
Calling Rishi the underdog, isn't it? Let's be honest, you went into this as the firm favourite. But I've got to add, and it's lovely to talk to you this morning. Don't get me wrong, it's always a pleasure, Mark, to have you on. However, why are you talking to us today on the basis that, all the votes have been cast, everything's been sorted, we get the announcement in a few hours. So why is the Rishi campaign out and about today?
Well, we've always been very happy to talk to the media all the way through this campaign. I think it's your job to, ask us questions and hold us to account. But it's also because this is a democratic process. Once our members have made a decision and that decision's been announced, we'll have a new leader and a new Prime Minister. And even if it's not the person I've been supporting this summer, I want to get behind them to help them deal with the challenges facing the country. There's massive challenges coming. You set those out in your programme this morning and in the news bulletin on energy prices, on inflation more widely. There are issues around our public services with the health service and social care. I want a Conservative government to be successful. I want the person elected today, even if it's not the person I supported during the summer, to be successful. And I'm very happy to come out and be accountable and have you throw questions at me today and in the days, weeks and months to come.
I mean, you say that. You want to try and see the party come together behind whoever wins the Premiership at midday today. But do all of your colleagues think that? I mean, we've been hearing reports over the weekend about disgruntled Conservative Party WhatsApp groups, about possibly even letters of no confidence being written, ready to be submitted as early as this week.
Well, look, firstly, I wouldn't pay a great deal of attention to those reports. But also, look, I was in one of my former jobs. I'm a former government chief whip, and I was responsible for party management and party unity. And it's one of the reasons why, as I said, I want the parliamentary party to come behind. She wins today. You know, I'm sure she'll be very conscious of the fact that in the MP rounds of this contest, a third of Conservative MPs supporting her, and even now, when, you know, as you've said in your own reports, I listened to Tom Harwood's account there that she's the favourite to win this contest, it's still only 4 in 10 Conservative MPs have publicly said that they support her. So she'll be wanting to get Conservative MPs behind her so that as she deals with difficult issues this winter, you know, and she's not going to get much of a gap. It's going to have to be announcing that energy package very soon, that people can unite behind her. And it's a team process. I want Conservative MPs to unite behind whoever wins, and if that's Liz, they should unite behind Liz. But it would help if she had a broadly based government that reflected the talent and opinion across the Conservative parliamentary party.
Mark Harper, it is good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. We look forward to having you back on the show very soon.
Pleasure.
Now, the government's flagship scheme to deal with illegal immigration is facing yet another legal challenge today. Activist groups have claimed that the decision to send channel migrants to Rwanda is unlawful.
Well, 27,000 people have made the journey in small boats across the Channel this year alone. That number includes 1,000 who crossed yesterday.
Well, let's go live, speak to our Home and Security editor, Mark White. He's outside the Royal Courts of Justice in central London for us. Good morning to you, Mark. We have this judicial review taking place today on this controversial deal that was signed back in April. How is it likely to play out, do we think?
Well, 5 days of evidence this week anyway, and then we'll probably get, or definitely get, a reserved judgment. So don't expect an outcome anytime soon. And then, of course, there is another challenge representing another group of asylum seekers that we're expecting in October. I think as far as the government is concerned, what we saw this weekend with around 2,000 people crossing the Channel in small boats just underlines the urgency of trying to get this matter settled so that they can go ahead with a policy that's very controversial, they know, but they believe will act as a deterrent to those who come across, pay people smuggling gangs to take them across the Channel in small boats to reach the UK and to claim asylum. Yet again yesterday, our Kent producer telling us that around about 1,000 people crossed the English Channel. Now we're waiting for the official figures that come out daily from the Ministry of Defence to confirm that, but if they do, that takes us over 27,000, and incidentally only about 1,500 away from the total for the entire year last year of just over 28,500, and of course still 4 months really of this year left to run.
Mark, I know you're going to be keeping us up to date throughout the course of the day. Thank you for now. Well, don't go anywhere. Coming up, we're going to be talking to consultant editor of The Mail, Andrew Pearce, going through all the stories that have caught his eye today. We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio, and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's
news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Right, it's 9:17. Time to go through some of today's top stories with the consultant editor of the Daily Mail, Andrew Pearce, as we always do on a Monday. Lovely to see you.
Good morning, very nice to see Stephen with you.
Yes, it's nice, isn't it, on a Monday morning?
Oh, you miss me, you see, when I'm not here, don't you?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Well, on that note, look, it's the day we've all been waiting for.
Yes,
finally.
thank God, what a relief.
Yeah, it's all over. The
Far too long. It can't go on this long ever again.
Mm-hmm. And yet we're expecting big shock and awe announcements, potentially, if it's Liz Truss, who we find out is the PM this week. What are we hearing?
She initially was opposed to Labour's idea, which has been taken on by the SNP and the Lib Dems, of a freeze on energy prices, because it benefits everybody. The Queen will get the freeze, Stephen Dixon will get the freeze, I'll get the freeze. So and she wanted more targeted help for families that really need it. The talk now is that she's going to go for that nuclear option, and she's going to spend really big and spend probably on a par with what they did with furlough, which has put us in debt for decades and decades, and this is going to mean we're going to go into even more debt because interest rates are even higher. But I think she's been up and down the country, and she's seen the terror and fear on people's faces who just worry they can't and won't be able to pay their heating bill. And they won't.
What about, I mean, she's not going to listen to the boss of OVO Energy was in the media last week, and he's talked about this, and he said freeze or reduce up to a certain amount of usage, which would benefit everyone, but primarily benefit those on a lower income. So it's like semi-targeted.
Yes.
I mean, he came up with some really good ideas, actually.
And maybe she'll steal some of them. But she's been working flat out in the Foreign Secretary's official residence in Kent with her team, and I bumped into a member of her team today on my way in, and he put it this way, he didn't look like he'd had much sleep.
Oh, gosh.
Because it's flat out, and I wish them all the best. We actually talked, by the way, about that ridiculous comedian on the Koonsberg show on the BBC yesterday. Why would you do that? Serious political show, it's her first one, and you put some stupid left-wing comedian on who starts taking the mick out of the Foreign Secretary, soon to be Prime Minister. Wrong time, wrong place.
Yeah, it's difficult because she was trying to set the tone, wasn't she? That this wasn't going to be a combative show, that it was going to be fun and light as well as conversational. But she deserves better than that, Laura Koonsberg. I really respect her, and she didn't really get what she
I thought afterwards
deserved.
she must have said, don't do that again. And apparently the response of the team putting the programme together was, oh, we didn't realise the comedian would do that.
Joe
Hello?
Lycett.
You have Joe Lycett on your show. You know what he's going to do. He's going to throw a wrecking ball into the programme, and he did.
But it got headlines.
Yeah, but for all the wrong reasons. For all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, it does seem very odd. I mean, the Mail's got it as anti-Tory bias. on the BBC.
Yeah,
but that's not actually true, is it? I mean, because it wasn't an editorial decision to...
A year ago, Tim Davie, the new Director General of the BBC, said he was setting up an investigation into impartiality of the BBC. Hello? Where is it then? Why has it taken a year? That was a classic example of saying to the new Prime Minister, the BBC is not on your side. They shouldn't be on her side. They should be on no one's side. They should be impartial.
Yeah. Talking about being impartial, actually, I don't know where Charles sits or the Queen sits on impartiality when it comes to members of the family. There's this huge rift now between Harry and William, and Harry's back in the UK at the moment. Do you think it can ever be healed now?
It feels like it can't, and we just had Princess Diana's 25th, the anniversary of her death. She would have knocked those boys' heads together.
Yeah.
She would have hated the fact that they're not talking. There's clearly an issue between the two wives. Harry and Meghan and William and Kate are literally just a few minutes apart on the Queen's Windsor estate, and they're not speaking.
Do we know that? I mean,
we do.
It's just so sad, isn't it? Especially as, look, they've just moved house, haven't they, the Cambridges?
Yeah.
Children about to start their new school. It's a really big moment
Yeah,
for,
and I think
for
we're
their
going to see
family.
the photograph of it today, I think, or tomorrow. The kids.
And Uncle Harry, over from the States, perfect. Pop in just across
not going
the
to talk
Great
to
Windsor,
them.
and they're not.
Not going to talk to the Queen. And, of course, he's got this book coming out later this year. And what's that going to be about? It's the way that will sell as if he's more criticism of the royal family. It's not acceptable.
Hasn't he been worried? Is part of this book's been delayed, and isn't that partly because him being worried, supposedly, and trying to pull some of it back?
Well, maybe, because it has been delayed, and I should think maybe they might be curious about the reaction to Meghan's ludicrous interview last week in that New York magazine where
she very odd.
She appeared to be suggesting that in South Africa they regarded her marriage into the royal families on a par with the ending of apartheid and the release of Nelson Mandela. It was all fiction. It's all fantasy. She's a fantasist.
Makes things up.
I think she does, because the two South Africans she allegedly spoke to had said, we did not have that conversation. And she also gave away a very personal thing about Harry when she said, Harry thinks he's lost his dad. Why would you say that 2 days before the anniversary of his mother's death? So he's got no mum. She's saying he's lost his dad. And, of course, there's a pattern of behaviour here, isn't there? Because she didn't talk to any of her family apart from her mum.
Well, exactly. And when you say things like that, there's a fallout between the wives, you look at out of the wives, which one has a history of fallouts, and you think, who's driving this problem? You know, as far as we're aware, you know, the Duchess of Cambridge has a great relationship with all of her family members, with all of the royals, with the public as well.
Yeah, and William is very close to the Middletons. He sees a lot of them, and I think that's been great for him, because he'd be the first to admit he was brought up in a pretty dysfunctional family, the Windsors are, and they've been great. They've been great with the kids, and look how often we see their children, and they're lovely. And I think Kate's done a fantastic job.
There's a difference, though. It's not comparing like with like, is it? Because William and Catherine know how to behave.
Yeah.
They are absolutely having to behave themselves now, because he is heir to the throne.
Yeah.
In a way that Harry will never have to do.
Well, the spare to the heir, it's always been a problem. Princess Margaret often was rather wayward in the 1970s, and that's what's going on here. Harry's desperately trying to find a role for himself, but whenever she talks on her podcast or we go to America, he doesn't appear to be doing anything.
Yeah.
She does all the talking.
Well, he's giving a speech, isn't he, on Thursday at the Well Child Awards.
No, how he feels.
What, doing all the talking?
Oh, shush! Sorry, I get overexcited on this topic. I'm shivering-jabbering.
Well, everyone talks about Meghan and Harry and William and Kate, and it's a real sad thing.
It is a sad thing. Can we talk petrol?
You can.
And diesel, actually.
Yes. Look, it's disgraceful. These wretched people. Look, every paper's reporting this, that petrol now is being sold in most forecourts at £1.70 a litre. At the wholesalers, it's down to £1.61, and it has been for ages. So why are they not passing on the decrease? They're profiteering. Remember when Sunak, the former Chancellor, remember him? Because we won't remember him for much longer after today. Bye-bye, bye-bye.
Off to the States he
goes.
goes.
Off to the States. You know, he had a green card until last year. He cut 5p off fuel in that mini budget, and not a penny and nobody felt a penny. I mean, you drive that huge car, Stephen. I mean, have you noticed any difference?
Oh, ha, 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 ha. No. Very efficient car I drive. Well, I have. Do you know what? It's filled me with joy to see the prices coming down, because it does make a difference. But it's still. Then you still look at it and go, "Well, it's still costing me £1.69."
I know. But it is coming down. That will help with inflation, and of course, if she does freeze energy prices, that's going to be a huge help to inflation, because it's already above 10%. Some suggesting it could go to 15%. If you're a pensioner, if you're on fixed income, you're worrying yourself sick.
Yeah.
No, it's
Why are you looking at me when I said pension? Not yet. No, quite a few years,
long
actually,
way
Steve.
off.
Well, no,
Right.
I've reached the big 6.
Have you?
Yeah.
So you've got a bus pass?
I have. I've got a tube pass and a bus pass. How
I never
ridiculous
use
is
them.
that? Use it all the time.
Oh, okay,
Came
good.
here on the tube today. But you
you.
can't use it before 9 o'clock. But so I get a zone 1 to 6 for free, and yet I used to have a season ticket 1 to 2, and idiot Mayor Khan gives me a pass 1 to 6. It's costing a fortune.
Yeah.
Why am I getting a pass at the age of 60?
Yeah, I know, you
No
do.
one
61.
retires at 60
Very sprightly.
anymore.
Thank
Very
you.
sprightly. Well, look, that is it from us for this morning. Isabel's back, of course, tomorrow morning with Mr. Holmes. I'm off till Friday now, fingers crossed. And I'll see you very soon. Tom Harwood's up next, so he's got the briefing live from Downing Street.
Bye-bye. Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK's looking unsettled with some heavy rain in places, but it will be feeling warm. Let's take a look at the details. The southwest of England will start the afternoon largely dry with some sunshine. However, a scattering of heavy showers will begin to develop with the possibility of some hail and thunder in places. South East England and East Anglia may also see a few showers, but they'll be more hit and miss, here with some hazy spells of sunshine for many. Showers may also affect southern parts of Wales, but further north should be largely dry with some good spells of sunshine. The Midlands should also be largely dry with a mix of cloud and sunshine. The odd shower can't be ruled out though, but in the sunshine it will be feeling warm. It'll be pretty similar across northern England with many areas dry, but a few showers will pop up, especially across Cumbria and Northumberland. Temperatures at lunchtime will be around the low 20s. The morning rain across Scotland will still be lying across the northern half of the country this lunchtime, but further south should be turning brighter with a few showers developing. The best of the dry and bright weather through, though, will be across Northern Ireland with very little cloud in the sky here. It'll be feeling rather warm with temperatures in the high teens. So heading towards the evening, we'll see further heavy showers developing, especially in the south. And that's how weather is shaping up for the rest of your Monday.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio, and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Good morning, live from Downing Street. It's 9:30 and this is The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood. Today on the show, in his last full day as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, we assess the premiership of Boris Johnson, one that lasted longer than Neville Chamberlain, one that lasted longer than Theresa May, but one that didn't quite reach the heady heights of Tony Blair or Margaret Thatcher. Just how did Boris Johnson do as Prime Minister? That's the question we're asking on his last day in power. That's after the headlines.